Today is Tuesday, September 13th, 2016. The Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte and the governing body of all other special assessment and taxing district for which said board so acts is now meeting in regular session. Only those items that indicate a specific time will be heard at the assigned time. All other items may be taken out of sequence to accommodate the public and staff availability. At this time, we would like to take a moment of reflection. And now, if you'll all please stand, Supervisor Howard will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, we're going to honor local resident Mabel Bird's 101st birthday celebration. She was celebrated her birthday on August 31st. Is she here somewhere? Thank you very much for coming. Did you have something you wanted to say, or you're good? Okay. All right, well, thank you very much, and congratulations. Okay, introduction of new employees.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Start off with some good news. I would like to introduce the board and the community to Rachel Ochoa. She's the newest team member at the Sheriff's Office, and she is our coroner's assistant, which is a position we've been struggling to fill for a little while. She was born in Curry County. She served in the Navy as a hospital corpsman from 2004 to 2007. She has a bachelor's degree in healthcare administration with a minor in human resources. At the Sheriff's Office, her direct supervisor will be Commander Henderson, and she essentially serves as a liaison between deputies, investigators, the forensic pathologists, and the family and families of decedents. So, tough job. You have to find a special person for that with a special list of qualifications. She's very qualified, and we're very excited to have her. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce her.
Great. Welcome, Rachel. Okay, any other new employees? County Council, any actions from closed session?
No reportable action.
Okay, at this time I would request any deletions, corrections, or additions from board members. In order to add an item to the agenda, the matter must have come to the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action before the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Are there any such items or corrections? Okay, so we will move on to brief reports or announcements from supervisors. We'll start with Supervisor Finigan.
Thank you, Chair. And judging from the amount of people that are here to speak, I'm going to keep this brief. It was very busy because it's been a while since we had our last board meeting, not including the one that we had as a joint meeting with the Yurok Tribal Council. Had a tri-agency meeting. The majority of the time spent at the tri-agencies was with the Council of Economic Advisors, which is a group of successful business people that give direction to tri-agency as towards economic development efforts and where to put our investments in our time and energy towards economic development in this community. I think they're leaning towards expansion of broadband, harbor, and literacy. So I think you're going to see renewed focus on the harbor and definitely on literacy as an economic driver for the future. Had a homeless ad hoc committee meeting, and that committee will have their spokesperson make a presentation in the near future to this board, since this board was the one that formed that. had a meeting at the Family Resource Center, went to the College of the Redwoods, and they have a nice presentation on literacy up and down the hallway, which is very impressive. As I mentioned, we had a joint meeting with the Yurok Tribal Council and talked about items of mutual interest. Had a meeting with at the airport with a gentleman who has to do with the Oregon funding agencies. So we had applied for some ODOT grants, and he came and gave us some suggestions. One of them was where, I don't know how many of you remember, years ago we had the Border Coast Economic Development Zone, where we slowed the traffic down, actually stopped it, cut a ribbon at the state line, and said we're going to work cooperatively with Oregon. And it's that kind of partnership that demonstrates to Oregon that they need to invest in California. So we're going to revive that. Hopefully, went to Sacramento to the State Association of Supervisors meeting, where we had a full meeting of all the executive board and weighed in and took positions as an entity on some of the ballot measures that are coming up and some of the propositions. Came back and had a meeting with some of the homeless, and I'm going to call them stakeholders, but some of the department heads, as to decide how most effectively go forward with the meetings and who's missing from those meetings. Attended the Crescent City Street Fair, which was, I think, a great success. So congratulations to the divas and everybody that participated, and the city in general. Obviously participated in the Labor Day Pick Your Park. Had a meeting with Caltrans regarding 199, talking about, while just that one bridge, that 100-year-old bridge, 95-year-old bridge that we've been trying to replace for 8 years. For the past 2 years, it's been embroiled in litigation. Just to give you an idea of how some of the time periods are, and that's a relatively simple project. Local Transportation Commission, we had a meeting with that, talked about the Elk Valley Corridor. We awarded a bid to go ahead and do the full multimodal planning, which would be bicycle, pedestrian, whether widening the pavement or whatnot, and that it would be from Elk Valley Road all the way out to 199, or Elk Valley and Holland Hill out to 199. Also talked about Elk Valley and Parkway and 199, that dangerous little intersection there. Had a conference call regarding the homeless with Senator McGuire's office and the Department of Housing and Urban Development, looking at some funding issues there and some technical assistance grants. Had another conference call with the California Emerging Technology Fund, where we are planning a symposium of leaders and champions throughout California regarding broadband and how to get it into our communities, how to get it to places like Klamath, how to get it to even the inner cities of those that are underserved and perhaps where there's poverty, acknowledging the fact that literacy is a keystone to economic development and getting broadband proliferation. That middle mile is a necessity. Had several calls with constituents. Went and met with the manager of Safeway regarding an ongoing problem that you're going to be addressing here later, so I'll let you do that. And then had one of my sons celebrate a birthday, and then of course I celebrated being 1 year older as well. So that was about it.
Congratulations. Supervisor Gitlin.
Thank you, Chair Hemmingsen. Well, a lot of activities this week, but I'd like to start with, I attended Mabel Bird's 101st birthday party, and it's just amazing. I see someone's date of birth, 1915, and she's with us today. Just a couple of little facts on Mabel. She's a little modest and doesn't want to talk about it. She was born in Oklahoma, the fifth of 10 children, 7 brothers and 2 sisters. She moved to New Mexico, where she lived in a 2-room dirt floor log cabin. Eventually, her family sent her to Tarkania College in Missouri, where Mabel studied to be a nurse. She is a registered nurse as we speak. Married the love of her life, Jack Bird, in 1945, who was a young soldier returning. They met in Chicago. And eventually moved to El Segundo, where she lived, where Jack worked in aerospace at Hughes Aircraft, and they lived there for 50 years until 2008, when Mabel moved north to live with her daughter Mary, who's with us today, and her son-in-law Dave Rhodes. World traveler, Australia, Australia, Europe, all across the United States, enjoys oil painting, sewing, knits, a voracious reader, and loves walking the beaches and forests of Del Norte County. So I want to personally say happy birthday, Mabel Bird, 101 years young. You are indeed a Del Norte treasure. This past April, thank you. On another good note, this past April, a constituent of mine, John Hastings, who's the owner-proprietor of Northcrest Market, suggested a charity softball game between Del Norte law enforcement and fire department search and rescue employees. I thought that was a pretty good idea, so I went to Sheriff Apperson with that, and he also thought it was a good idea. So we're going to have a softball tournament, and it's going to be at Pikes Field, Saturday, October 15th. The tournament will be aptly called Guns and Hoses. Is that right, Sheriff? So it's the cops versus the firefighters. Proceeds, less the expenses, will go to raise funds for Del Norte Search and Rescue and Del Norte Explorers. We'll have more information on that shortly. So thank you, John Hastings of Northcrest Market, for being the mitigating factor in putting this to reality. Also met with a constituent on Birchall who is seeking assistance in finding and solving and filling the potholes for the street in which he lives on, and it's a private street, so we helped him find an answer for that successfully. Also attended this Chamber's small business mixer at Anateca and Port-au-Prince. Met with CHP Commander Deepy and a constituent who resides on Cooper, and that constituent asked for additional study on vehicles exceeding the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, and we're looking into that as we speak. The board met in special session with the Yurok tribe to learn the tribe's boundary line will increase by about 1,200 acres. Most of the newly acquired property will come from Humboldt County. Also discussed was the Yurok's wish to acquire the Klamath softball field. We'll be hearing more about that later. Attended a special meeting of the library trustees who discussed its final budget and ongoing library operations after the untimely and sad death of head librarian Tina Capshaw. Thursday, September 5th, I attended the monthly area operations meeting at the fire hall, and that evening I heard a presentation by District Attorney Dale Trigg, who addressed the Republican Women's Group, and he discussed Proposition 57, which will be on the ballot as one of 17 initiatives. It's a onerous 57. We'll be talking about that in the future. It's a very onerous law, which compromises law enforcement and those who will come out and immediately be eligible for parole from the Department of Corrections. I attended a number of activities at the first annual Find Your Park event, including helping organize the Labor Day event, actually the Monday, to clean up with partners Just Serve, Team Walmart, Home Depot, Cub Scout Packs 20, and the Boy Scouts. There were 2 troops involved there, lots of city staff, and altogether about 65 hero volunteers who pitched in to clean up Beachfront Park. Last Wednesday, I met with CDD Director Heidi Kunstl and Code Enforcement Officer Mello, and we came to a successful resolution of how best to clean up the county parcel east of Walmart and the adjoining property owned by the Scenic Hills Apartments. Attended a Sea Cruise meeting and announced that the speed shop giant Jegs, it's J-E-G-S, would be making substantial gift donations for the silver anniversary of the 25th annual Sea Cruise Car Show in October. And finally, I attended the annual Farm Fresh Republican Dinner at the Ace Hardware Building at the fairgrounds. The group heard a presentation by 4th District Congressman Tom McClintock. That's my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Howard.
Thank you, Chair. Had some constituent issues arise on Lodevida Road again. No surprise that that keeps coming up on discussion points for my district, but potentially I hope we will find a solution for our community on Lodevide Road, something that's going to be much more cost effective to the county. As Chairman Finigan stated, attended tri-agency, and I was really, Chairman Finigan, I was really happy to see literacy as one of their top agenda items for economic development in our community. I know it's been a long-standing. Somebody keeps turning this mic down. Thank you, Vicki. Literacy needs to be a long-standing effort here in our community and more focused on our children for the future economic development efforts here in our area.
I really hope that that becomes part of a future acronym in our community that really designates focus for all our agencies and all our business leaders about the importance of children reading. I had some conversations concerning blue zones again with our neighbors across in Brookings, Oregon and Curry County as a potential cross-border effort to secure health and nutritional type campaigns for our area where people would really start focusing on their own health and longevity. And had conversations with the Visitors Bureau. They wanted to really have some history specific to how the Visitors Bureau was created in 2006, how funding was secured, and what their rural goals and measurements are for transparency and measurement around the investment of public funds to their organization. As Roger and others have mentioned, met with the Yurok Tribal Council and learned quite a bit about their plans for private lands within Del Norte County. Also had discussions with Sheriff Apperson and members of Neighborhood Watch on potential solutions for expanding sheriff's patrols in the Smith River and Hyuchi and Gasky areas and what those solutions might be with our general fund budget crunch that we continue to face annually that just don't seem to be getting any bigger. Also had discussions with our resource conservation district specific to Prop 84 funds, and I also had conversations with our school district and the literacy campaign that's currently taking place. Attended the Del Norte Local Transportation Commission where we discussed, as Supervisor Finigan pointed out, the intersection of Highway 199 and Elk Valley Crossroads. As our as Steve Wakefield has pointed out, has now become the most responded to intersection in our county for traffic collisions. And I just feel it's unacceptable that the movement that Caltrans has had over the last several years in responding to very much close calls at that intersection has not been addressed yet, and we continue to potentially lose community members at that intersection. What came out of that discussion with Caltrans, and more importantly from community members that attended and expressed their concerns with that intersection, is we always hear about the accidents after they occur and the loss of life at that intersection. But what we really need to start talking about is those near misses. So I think launching a social media campaign, Twitter, internet, whatever it might happen to be for those traveling on 199 and Elk Valley Crossroad intersection every day, how many times have you come close to getting in an accident? And we've asked Caltrans also to place the study where they evaluate that intersection and the amount of traffic on various days to be during our peak travel periods. Travel on 199 is seasonal in our community based on tourism. And to have a study that was based in April versus July is really not a fair assessment to the kind of risk that our community members currently face at that location. Also attended some Find Your Park events. And then in addition, the social mixer for the Chamber of Commerce for small businesses at Anateca.
Thank you. I had a lot of the same meetings, so I'll just try to hit the high points, but I did have a NORTEC meeting, which is the Northern Rural Training and Employment Consortium in Chico. Met with Maggie Kraft from A1A, Area 1 Agency on Aging, to discuss their budget issues. And we all seem to be having the same budget issues, which is basically no money. And as others reported, we did have a dual meeting with the Yurok Council and the Board of Supervisors. As Supervisor Finigan said, we met with Mitch Zwecker from the director, who is the director of the Oregon Department of Aviation, on some possible funding options. I had a North Deal meeting, which is Caltrans meeting about all the projects that are happening in District 1, which there is a lot going on in Del Norte County, actually a lot going on in Humboldt and Trinity County. Also had an automation goal committee meeting Had several whale entanglement conference calls and meetings. Had a Border Coast Regional Airport Authority meeting, as was stated. We had a Natural Resource Committee meeting. I had some discussions with Bev Knoll, who is part of the Save the South Beach group. Met with supervisors, with CAO Sarina and myself, trying to come to some sort of resolution there. Had a gender review. As was mentioned, we had a local transportation commission meeting. And I was unfortunately unable to attend the Find Your Park celebration because I was out of town, my niece who had passed away had a celebration of life, so I was involved with that. And that was it for me. So now, Jay, if you want to give us a brief report, what you've been up to.
Over the last 3 weeks, we've been engaging in budget meetings with numerous departments as well as the budget team, working on ledge review and the legislative platform that'll be coming to the board, working on evaluations, had numerous meetings with department heads and different employees, attended the HELP pre-meeting that was referred to earlier, have been working on employee negotiation proposals, had a conference call with Senator McGuire's staff and along with HCD, attended the OES meeting, the monthly ops meeting, and also had an interview with the gentleman who was the Japanese intern in regards to management during emergencies and OES actions, and attended the joint meeting with the Yurok tribe, conducted a human resources exit interview, met with the chairman regarding the South Beach discussion with Bev Knoll, attended the Auto Goals Committee and also the Natural Resources Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. And it is the 10:25 hour, which is time for public comment. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Sarah Cruz. I live in the county. I've been asked to read a letter from Brian Ridgely to the board, Mr. Chairman, because he can't be here because he's been called to corporate headquarters in Santa Rosa. This is his letter that I'm going to read.
Okay.
Good morning, all. I wanted to take a moment to share some of the very troubling actions taken by Supervisor Gitlin and use this opportunity to respond to the accusations he has made. Recently, Mr. Gitlin has used social media as a means to threaten and slander the businesses that he feels are contributing to the blight issue in our community. He has set up a Facebook page using photographs and commentary, urging customers not to shop the business I operate after I questioned his tactics and explained the information he is providing to the public is exaggerated, embellished, or fabricated. There are erroneous examples that Supervisor Gitlin has used and the facts behind the statements that he has made. Mr. Gitlin claims that the shopping carts used at my store are littering the woods and rivers of our areas. In reality, we invested thousands of dollars employing anti-theft devices on our baskets. We were the first and I believe the only operation in our community to use such technology. With that said, no method of cart retention is bulletproof. So in order to deal with the few carts that are stolen or removed from our lot, we use a cart retrieval service suggested by former Police Chief Doug Plack to collect the carts as well. He claims that we contribute to vagrancy by allowing homeless, transients, and professional panhandlers to congregate in front of our store. A great number of people without transportation shop at my store, and a bus stop is provided in the front of the store for their convenience. Many of these people may appear to be less fortunate than some, but they are not the beggars that Mr. Gitlin claims them to be. They're customers, and we are blessed to have their business. There are, of course, exceptions. Transients come through, and there are those who panhandle. When those actions are brought to the management's attention, we politely ask them to leave. If a situation warrants police presence, then they are called. Per company policy, we are not allowed to detain, chase, or threaten anyone with good reasons. Actions such as this open us to a multitude of moral and legal issues that can have and cost managers their career. Lastly, Mr. Gitlin claims that the shopping center that provides our tenancy is in disrepair and is in need of landscaping, and this is a valid point raised by the supervisor. I have asked and continue to request several improvements from the property owner, and they have responded. I was raised in this community. I graduated high school here, left to educate myself, and returned home to raise my family. I have run my business in this community longer than Mr. Gitlin has lived here. No one carries more affection for this area than I. I know by dealing with Supervisor Gitlin in the past, his memory becomes fuzzy when it comes to facts. So I went to the trouble of printing out all of the social media quotes from Supervisor Gitlin. What I find particularly troubling is the fact that he claimed, "I came to a supervisor's meeting because he was bullying me." The fact is, I went to the meeting to politely and publicly explain that the information he provided to the public was and is false, and explain the negative impact it has on the community to encourage others to shop outside this area, which he has done. In my opinion, he does not deserve the honor of his seat or any position serving the people of Del Norte. I'm embarrassed by the fact that I am a constituent of his and believe any candidate that runs for public office has a duty to help build the local economy, use revenue responsibly, maintain their moral integrity, and most importantly, unite the community, all characteristics that Mr. Gitlin obviously lacks. I would respectfully request that the board to admonish Mr. Gitlin from any future plans to attack the community he is paid to serve.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hi, Board. My name is Nancy Powers. I live in Gasky. I've been shopping at the Safeway store for almost 15 years now. And when I read the article on Saturday, because I just happened to pick up a paper, I didn't even know what town I was reading about at first, because that's not my experience. My experience is I go through the doors easily, I come out the doors easily, I don't smell anything. I was raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. I know all the smells. I don't smell them. I want to say that in the last many years, several years, the quality of the service has gone way up. I'm very conscious of service and retail. It's gone way up. The quality of the products that are carried in Safeway now. I do shop in a couple of other places, but that's my main, what I call anchor store on many levels. That's where I go because I know the quality's there, the service is there. I also, I'm just blown away by the fact that Safeway, being the anchor of that strip mall, if you will, has a target on its back. I don't understand why, as public servants, we, the community and the public servants, aren't doing their best to enhance commerce here, to put a target on its back and to basically influence people to go somewhere else. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's counterintuitive of what should be happening, and that shouldn't be happening. I just want to say that in the paper I saw where it said we're encouraged to come and speak. I'm speaking because I believe the core issue is, and maybe I'm not well versed in this, but the core issue is those without homes. And so whatever's happening, whatever good plans are in place for that issue, whatever stepping stones are in place, I don't believe that they're Safeway store managers' issues.
Thank you.
Good evening. No, good morning, gentlemen, and Roger. My name is Lisa McCowan. I own and operate a local insurance agency, and I'm here today to show support for the grocery store and the manager, Brian. Although Roger Gitlin has made it plain on Facebook for everyone who is against the said grocery store and who blames the manager Brian for the homeless problem that congregates in front of it, come here today to speak up. I believe that there are a few people here today that may or may not speak that also want to show their support for Brian. So could you folks please stand? Thank you. Brian asked me personally to let the supervisors know, and he came to me personally because he knew I've had this issue myself, sadly, to let the supervisors know that he was called down to his corporate office. The nature of that business is unknown to him. He and I both can't help but wonder what this meeting is about, and does Roger already know? We also wonder if Roger is aware that Brian is one of his constituents as well as his wife. He lives in his district, and now so do I. We think Roger has something to do with it. And if Roger has thought it through, let's think about this, the backlash. This community supports Safeway. Brian was born and raised here. I don't think this is going to play out like you think. So let me give you an analogy. It's kind of like the stock market. We do not have a crystal ball. We do not know what's going to happen in the future. We can only look back at the trends. We can only look back at the past. So let's talk about Roger's past history. By the way, these are all facts because it happened to me, and it can be verified. Roger is known for going after a local business. Roger is known for going after one person in that business. Roger is known for not only calling their corporate offices, but sending links from these meetings themselves and demanding action, ridiculous actions. Roger is known to embellish and outright fabricate the story, just as Brian said, to give legs to it, so to speak. A great example of that would be when he told the triplicate and my company, the company that is unnamed because they asked me not to say it here today, that I made a terrorist threat against him at the county supervisors meeting. That was in the newspaper. His quote. I'm repeating that said threat. I hope the Lord pricks your heart. If that's not an embellishment, folks, I don't know what is. Now, everybody with the sane mind knew that that was not a terrorist threat. It was a plea unto God. When my company called me and asked me to write 2 sentences to go into my permanent record, which read, the next time I appear in front of the county supervisors meeting, I will just say that I am Lisa McCowan, an insurance agent.
Lisa, could you wrap it up?
Yes.
We've got a lot of people.
I would like to think that this is a teachable moment. Just quickly. The other thing, what else has Roger done? He has gone after the same people over and over to write letters to the triplicate, and again, the folks in the same mind sees through the harassment. Roger is also known for a company for getting a hold of my grassroots corporate lawyers because of a $100 donation that I made to Catherine's campaign. We are constantly invited to meet as State Farm. Whoa, man, I'm going to be in trouble again. We're constantly invited to meet at assemblymen's with senators and call to actions. These things that are going on are an embarrassment to this board, to our community, and even to me. I cannot ask you.
Lisa,
I cannot ask you to.
we got a lot of people.
Okay, I cannot ask you to cause action. I just ask you to please correct it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. More public comment?
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Linda Perry, and I am a resident of the county, and I live in the city. And I'm here also to speak in support of our local Safeway store and its manager. As most of you probably know, I've lived here all my life, longer than some of you that are on the board. I've shopped at Safeway for over 40 years. And I would like to say that, for example, even yesterday, I had business in Brookings. I chose to go to Safeway first and do my grocery shopping because I support our local businesses. I go into Safeway at least twice a week, sometimes more often than that, because I'm not the most prudent shopper. I don't put out a list and get there once a month, or what I see some people doing, but, so I'm there frequently. And at least over the past 2 years, since I've seen the city ordinance signs posted, I have never been approached by anyone for a handout. I go to Safeway in the mornings, I go in the afternoons, I go in the evenings. I don't see what Mr. Gitlin claims is going on there. I do see Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, cheerleaders. I see all our local organizations being allowed to come to the front of Safeway and do their fundraisers. I think that's a great thing that is allowed in our community. I'd also like to say that Safeway is a stable employer in our community. The employees that have been there or that are there are longtime residents. They support our community. They pay taxes in our community. I think that Mr. Gitlin's issues are issues that should be addressed to the city council, the city manager. And I would also like to say that if you have constituents who are coming to you with complaints about anything that's going on in the Jed Smith Center, that you refer them to the city manager, the city council, and the city police. And if there's illegal activities going on there and people are talking to you about them, then they need to be told that their actions are to walk into one of the stores, whichever is closest to them, whether it's Safeway or anyplace else, and ask them to call the police and take care of the matter at that point in time. But again, I'm just here to support our local businesses, especially Safeway. It's my anchor store, as this other lady said, and I appreciate them being here. I honestly feel that Mr. Gitlin is trying to drive them out of our community. And do we want another vacant store in Del Norte County, in Crescent City, a big store like that? It's also a big part of the tourist dollars that get spent here in our community every summer. You can see how full in the June, July, August, and September months that parking lot is, and those are not all locals. Those are tourists that are stopping there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you would please be mindful of the time, I would appreciate it. We have a lot of speakers, evidently. I understand the passion, but if you would be mindful of the monitor here that keeps track of your time, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
My name is Charles Willett. I was born here in Crescent City. You know, I just became the homeless advocate for this county. I was homeless 13 months. I'm confused. I just came from Safeway. I asked one of my friends who is a member of this community, do you see a blight problem here? She says no. I was homeless. Is me and my homeless friends the blight problem? Are we trash? Are we nothing? I'm confused. To me, Safeway looks like a very cleaned up store. You know, there is some people that are down and out, but they're still people, loved by God, all equal. You know, we as humans, we're not trash. So if there's a blight problem, I'm curious what it is. Safeway is one of the cleanest areas there is. Maybe there should be some pictures of some other towns, of some ghettos shown at these meetings to show what blight looks like, because Safeway ain't in a blight condition. You know, I was homeless for 13 months, and because of people willing to believe in me, to reach their hand out to me, I'm not homeless no more. It's been over 4 months since I've used drugs. You know, people need to respect other people and make them feel like they're not trash, because they're not trash. If there's a blight problem, then it's the people. You know, I'm through there every day. I don't smell the pee. I don't see the trash. People are getting good at picking up after themselves. Safeway is one of the cleanest areas. I mean, why start a domino effect when you don't know the end result? You know, it needs to be thought through. What's the trash? The people? I'm confused, because we ain't trash. Hey, we some of the kindest, most caring people you will ever meet, with God filled in our souls, that we just want to be a part of the community. And if we're trash and we're a blight problem, you will have to answer to God someday on that. We're all equal, all the same. We have the same blood running through our veins. So if we're trash sitting out there in front of Safeway because we need something to eat, I'm confused. I'm confused, Mr. Gitlin. I'm confused. And may God bless you, sir. And may he make you realize now that you were in the wrong. And I hope that you can change this domino effect that's going wrong for you and make right decisions and ask him for your forgiveness and ask the community for their forgiveness. Because Safeway has been here many years, been willing to help many people. And I hope you'll be willing to help people too. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Marler, founder of the Birch Track Neighborhood Watch. I know about blight and crime. Mr. Gitlin has his target set wrong. Safeway is a victim of blight. If you look around the surrounding properties, state-owned properties, they're the blight. You go in there, no offense to our homeless, they need services. Not all of them are criminals, but you go back there, you will find suitcases emptied out there. I doubt very much they were theirs. Tourists are being robbed. My friend recently, Tanya, got her purse stolen out of the Safeway parking lot. She found it on the side of Safeway. You're pointing the finger in the wrong direction, Mr. Gitlin. You need to go after the state. I looked at the maps. Most of them are state-owned properties, blighted, with the exception of, I forgot the name, McNamara, the logging place. I went to file a blight today on a property in your district, Del Norte County Fairgrounds, the wooded area south. I looked at the maps and confirmed that is state-owned property there. There's human waste, litter, and not all of them, like I say, the homeless are criminals, but a lot of the crime stems out of there. Safeway is the victim. And the county has taken no action, the state has taken no action to clean that mess up. It's an ecological hazard, and it's a blight, and I believe it's in violation of California's Civil Code 3479. Anything which is injurious to health, including but not limited to the illegal sale of controlled substances, or is incident of offensive to the senses, or is indecent or offensive to the senses, or is an obstruction to free use of property so as to interfere with the comfortable enjoyment of life or property. Right there. You're opening yourself up for lawsuits, what you're doing, Mr. Gitlin.
Thank you. Mark.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Infeld, and I live in the county. I have concerns when a public official uses their position as a bully pulpit, when the recommendations are detrimental to both our community and are contentious at the same time. Rather than take issue with the use of Safeway as a scapegoat, we as a community need to address the concerns and issues in a different way. I'm pleased to hear that there are meetings going on. I'm asking the Board of Supervisors and the City Council to continue to work on ways to develop alternatives that may assist the individuals that Mr. Gitlin finds issue with. The people are in circumstances for reasons you nor I may have any idea and may not have been considered. Maybe their presence is to all of you and to me the opportunity to show works of mercy to a fellow human being, to be able to step forward and answer the question, were you there to assist my brothers and sisters? Let's look for ways to uplift their day and ours rather than use tactics that are not beneficial to any involved. We could look to be the community of service to all in this state. I know that I would like to answer yes, I was there in a positive, uplifting way, and I didn't just walk by. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. That's fine. This is all public comment.
Hi. Am I good? My name is Kendra Rook, and I know you know me, Chris. I'm here as the jet ski mom kind of person, go-to, so I think I'm talking about the Save South Beach thing. So I thought about making notes, and I thought about sending emails, and then Roger came and visited us during the Find Your Parks weekend, and that weekend we had quite a few of our riders here because they were getting ready for a competition that we just got home from at 1 o'clock this morning. And congratulations to Bailey Jones, our local girl, took second place. So that's pretty cool. But instead of saving South Beach, as the jet ski family and community, we would like to share South Beach. We really have never had any problems with the people in the water, and this last Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend, sorry, the Save Your Parks, or Find Your Parks, we had so many paddleboarders and surfers out there with us. We approached the families, let them know that, you know, these are our boating safety rules that we're following. We will watch out for your kids. You know, we actually had a paddleboarder was like, hey, do you want to take my board out? You guys are having so much fun. And it was really nice to just kind of hang out with everybody, and we all got along. And we didn't have any problems. The issues we're having is we're getting calls and complaints about us that is like pulling our law enforcement away from other things in the community to come down and check on us. We are in contact with the law enforcement every time we ride. Somebody calls it in, and like I wanted just to let everybody know, we are following those rules. We are within our 100 feet of other people in the water. We launch, we get out, and we head away from everybody. We don't fuel on the water lines. We pull our skis out. I just wanted to let you guys know that instead of indicting you with paperwork of statistics of how much surf wax is on the reefs in Australia and all that stuff, I just wanted to come and speak from the heart and let you guys know that because that competition ended last night and we all came here, there's going to be about 5 pro riders here for the next couple days, and if anybody wants to meet them or see them, they are here. There's a photographer from Australia. There's 2 riders that drove all the way from New York because they love South Beach. This area is so nice for them that they all come and they're gonna stay. So they're here in our community for the next 5 days, renting motels, having meals, going to Safeway because I'm making dinner tonight. You know, and this is something, the town that we just came from was Pacific City, up above Lincoln City, smaller than Crescent City. Surf Slam put on a big event there for the last 4 days. We had probably 100 people from this local Medford area there. That brought in 3,000 people to the town for the weekend. 3,000 people. It was amazing, and there was no arguing. Everybody was getting along, families on the beach, dogs on the beach, surfers, jet skis, everything like that, and it's just a really amazing thing. So I guess I just want to invite people to come and see what we do before you want to complain about what we do, because we really just want to get along with everybody.
Thanks, Kendra. And if you could get a hold of me at some point,
I actually wrote myself a note to call you.
Okay, would you please? Thanks.
I will.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more public comment?
Hello, I'm Norma Williams, Chapter President of Del Norte County Employees Association, SEIU Local 1021. The county's salary discrepancies are certainly a huge issue for the Agricultural Weights and Measures Department. There are 2 positions that require statewide licenses and really do draw from a statewide pool of potential employees. It has been nearly impossible to find qualified people for these positions. A licensed inspector is a great career that has potential to work into a commissioner sealer position that can pay upwards to $200,000 a year, although Del Norte County maxes out at only about $85,000. Even rural counties have several, if not many, qualified applicants for these positions. Del Norte recruited 5 times in the past few years and only found 3 qualified applicants. Not all had the required licenses, but were hired provisionally, which is not normally done. Okay. Any other county that has complex pesticide issues that we have here would be looking to hire an inspector with several years of pesticide use enforcement experience. But that is absolutely impossible here given our current wages. There are real consequences to the county's decision to maintain these low salaries. It has jeopardized the legitimacy of this county's agricultural weight and measures programs because the department has not been fully staffed since 2013. This comes from an employee who wished to remain anonymous because he feared it would negatively affect her prospects for advancement. What the employee did want you to really understand is that current low wages are compromising programs the public cares deeply about.
Thank you. More public comment?
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Cheryl Williams, and I'm the Vice President for the Del Norte County Employees Association. And I have a letter also from one of your employees who is fearful of coming forward of himself for fear of repercussion or retaliation at his job. And he says, I am a 34-year-old married father of 3 young children. I started working for Del Norte County as a way of expanding my horizons and creating stability for my growing family. Before I started working at Del Norte County, I worked with developmentally disabled adults, serving each client with compassion and enjoying watching individuals grow. I have worked in special education and done behavioral therapy prior to working with our county. I did take an initial pay cut of $5 each hour to start working for Del Norte County in a position that most people would consider high risk. I worked well in that position, and the positive changes that I was able to see in my clients' lives was worth the work that I was putting in. When it came to my family and personal life, the only way I was able to provide any type of stability for them at that time was to work with the youth 40+ overtime each week, because that meant I was making $17 an hour working time and a half. I understand that I signed up for this position and do love working for this county. I have had opportunities to grow and have been able to transfer to better and higher paying positions. When I consider the position that I am working in now, I would consider it a respectable and non-entry level position. I am expected to dress appropriately and to maintain my overall appearance. I do enjoy doing so, but it has cost. Thank you, Goodwill and Brookings. I want to live in a nice home free from mold and rats. But in Del Norte County, good luck finding a rental nice enough for under $1,200 each month. I would like to have my own family on my health plan, but that would mean we don't have other needs met. I have shown growth in the 7 years working for the county and have been compensated for that, but I would like to respectfully bring my story to the board for personal reflection and consideration. Fact number 1, I have a wife taking care of our family and home, 2 daughters in school, and 1 son who is 10 months. I am making over $20 an hour and will be turning in over 20 hours of overtime for this pay period to provide for my family. I would consider this to be a decent wage in our community. Fact 2, my kids are receiving Medi-Cal, blessings, and my wife does not qualify. It is cheaper to sign her up for California covered than the health plan I receive. Fact 3, my family qualifies for WIC and does utilize this system. What a blessing it is. Fact 4, even though I have compassion, enjoyment, excitement, and desire to work with my clients, I still have a small business myself to facilitate, family and a household. Fact 5, the people providing these services for the less fortunate in our community are us in the front lines. The people serving the people in need are the ones who are still in need themselves, but are stuck in a position where help isn't easily attainable. And I know I'm out of time, so I'll finish with this last sentence. Because in this employed position with the county, I should not have to rely on or qualify for the types of services we provide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Bill Lonsdale and I live in Crescent City. I've corresponded with the board about my concerns on the Safeway issue, and I won't go into all of that detail. But I am here this morning to support Safeway and to support Brian Ridgely. A great injustice may have been done to both Safeway and to Brian. We only know that he's been called down to headquarters. We don't know what the result of that will be. We don't know if his job is in jeopardy. We don't know if the continued existence of Safeway up here at the extreme fringe of their California market is in jeopardy. But if either of those things happen, then the supervisor of District 1, my supervisor, bears an awesome responsibility for the outcome. And it's wrong, it's unfair, it's improper. Now somebody may think, well, what does Bill want them to do about it? I mean, they've got this obstreperous person on their board, and he's out of control a lot of the time. What can they do? Well, I don't recommend that you take any adverse action against my supervisor, because after all, we need a representative. But there are things that can be done, and I wish you would consider it. You can disavow the representations made by your colleague and reassure Safeway and the community and Brian's management chain that he does not represent the views of the board and that he should be speaking as a private citizen, not as a supervisor. You should urge my supervisor to quit using his designation as District 1 supervisor in what in essence ought to be communications from a private citizen. When you bring to bear the full weight of government by claiming to be a government representative, you skew the outcome. You create an uneven battlefield, and that's wrong. He should be advised to tone it down, to stop representing himself as a supervisor in these things, and do that not because you can make him do it, but to do that because it's a matter of good manners, it's a matter of propriety, and it's a matter of fairness. And I urge you to do that. Thank you very much.
Next, please.
Hi, Linda Sutter. I live in the county. Well, first off, I want to address Mr. Gitlin. I don't know if you guys have a code of ethics that you go by. I don't know if there's a violation there. But I do remember Donna Westfall, when she sat on the city council, she was censured for stuff like this. So I believe Mr. Ridgely's down there in corporate headquarters because there could be a potential lawsuit against the county because he acted in his official capacity to badmouth Safeway. That's outrageous. Secondly, see all these workers behind us here? They should not have to be on any type of welfare, WIC, or whatnot else for their jobs. You've got a CEO or CAO or whatever you call them, Mr. Sarina, $176,000 a year, including benefits. Did you know that? Highest paid probably employee in Del Norte County. Makes more money than our district attorney. That's not acceptable. Not acceptable. If you guys want to throw your money out of the general fund without even a vote from the public for a shiny new terminal, which is economic development, okay? But these guys here who work for their money every day should not have to beg for food. Lastly, South Beach. Let's talk about that for just a second. Let's get a permit. It sounds like Ms. Rook has a thing here. Let's get a permit and make it an official designated launch area and a designated area for the jet skis. It might bring money if you guys are interested in economic development and financial stability of our county. It might be another way to bring some money into the county. Thank you.
Next, please.
My name is Patricia Black. I live in the county. I actually live in District 1. And I just want to second what Kathy Enfeld said and Nancy Powers and several other people here who have talked about having good experiences at Safeway. I have been to other countries where shopping centers are guarded by guys with AK-47s. That seems to be some of the direction that some people would like this town to go. I want to share for you a vision that I think you already mostly share of a place where everyone is valued regardless of how much money they have or how much they're able to afford. I'm pleased to know that you guys are working on a plan to help the people that don't have housing get housing. I think that's a very proactive way to go about it. And when someone speaks about my community in ways that are negative and narrow and blaming, that doesn't make me happy. It makes me happy when someone like Brian Ridgely says, those people may be less fortunate, but they're our customers. Those people may be less fortunate, but they are our community members. Thank you. Oh, and one last thought. What if you guys wrote a letter to corporate Safeway and said, we, as the Board of Supervisors, support what Brian Ridgway is doing here in Crescent City? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
I'm Victoria Dickey. I live in Mr. Finigan's district. You guys are really catching hell this morning. Excuse me. I've never talked to any of you about this. In fact, I don't say it particularly because I don't think it's a positive thing to say. But there's been a lot of negative already, so I'm going to put it out there. I'm relatively new to this community. I've only been here since about 2005. If I can shop someplace other than Safeway, I do. And if it's a last resort, I think it's an asset to the community. But I don't feel safe going there. I don't feel, you know, so for whatever it's worth, I mean, you know, if you want to boo, stand up now. I can't help it. You got to express your feelings. I'm expressing mine. That's not what I was here, you know, to talk about. I think anytime anyone puts out points that could be improved, that shouldn't be shunned or it should be welcomed. And I don't know, you know, the delivery I'm not getting into. That's not what I came here to talk about. What I came to talk about was a hospital. I'm very concerned. I know you're going to have it on the agenda, but I'm very concerned that we need to do something. I believe that you have handed the reins in part over to some kind of a district or whatever. If you gave it away, you should be able to get it back. You need to take charge of what's going on at the hospital. A little friend of mine, young girl, just went in and there was very botched surgery. I'm not going to go into the details, but I add that to the fact that I'm concerned. I go to Medford, and in the malls, they have these little kiosk things that say, if you need service today, give us a call. Here's the phone. We need to have somebody in this community that actually likes us, somebody who wants to be here, somebody who's not taking the money away from here and moving it down to Santa Rosa. I appreciate that my daughter has a wonderful hospital within blocks of her home, but we need something. We are an aging community, and we have two choices: either get this thing straightened around or move. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello. Okay. My name's Jay Chernak. I live in the county. I don't have notes. I hadn't expected to speak today. I actually came to hear Mr. Ridgely, what he had to say. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. But I'm speaking now because somehow this whole Safeway issue has evolved into what a bad guy Roger is and what a great guy Mr. Ridgely is. And I think that's kind of missing the point. The issue with Mr. Gitlin is, quote, take a bite out of blight. That's the issue at Safeway. Once you get into Safeway, it's a different issue. I don't have any complaints about it. The service, I think, has gone downhill, unlike what the other lady said. I've talked to employees there. They have a sign, three's a crowd. We'll get more checkers. There aren't enough checkers. Again, that's not the issue. Safeway is one of the few shopping stores, so in a way you have to go there. The blight is the issue, and if somebody can look through that shopping center and say, oh, you know, this is great, there's no problems here, it looks good, they're somewhat blind. If you look at Safeways or other shopping centers in other communities, even the Walmart shopping center, it does not have the litter, it does not have the cigarette butts, it does not have the homeless loitering around. And actually, the gentleman who's been homeless for a long time, perhaps he could be a spokesman to the homeless there. If those people who are homeless are hanging around that center, want to do something, instead of sitting and hanging around there, they could go around and clean up some of the trash and maybe have a thing that says donations accepted. Maybe then a lot of that issue would go away. Again, it's not a thing of slamming homeless, it's not a thing of slamming Roger, and it's not a thing in saying rah-rah for Mr. Ridgely. It's a matter of community pride and cleanup of blight. Safeway Shopping Center is not the only one. There's a property manager and there's an owner of that shopping center, and quite frankly, I think they're the ones that are responsible for the condition of the grounds around Safeway, not each individual tenant there. I want to hand this to Roger. He can make copies. I've had some contact with the property manager and
If you
learned
give
that
it to
the
the
Burger
clerk.
Trust
Give it to the clerk, please, and she'll give it to him.
is one of, apparently I've been told, the minority owners, but I really think that those are the people that we need to focus on in cleaning up that thing. And the personal thing between Roger and Mr. Ridgely has to end, probably on both of their sides. But again, it's the take out of blight that's the issue here, and not good guy, bad guy, and what a wonderful outfit Safeway is. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Yes, good morning. My name is Ed Edwards, and I'm a resident of Crescent City. This is regards to the Safeway situation. Singling out Supervisor Gitlin is unfair bias and is not Gitlin's fault that the conditions of the Safeway store is and has been a valid concern of many members of this community for many years. We are grateful for Supervisor Gitlin and his take a bite out of blight, campaign, because it has and continues to be such a positive impact on working toward the beautification of our community, and also, more specifically, Gitlin's involvement in trying to get the Safeway store situation under control. Because my wife and granddaughter have been ill at ease when approaching stores like the Crescent City Safeway. Although we are somewhat encouraged that while some progress has been made, there is still a long way to go to bring the Safeway store to an acceptable status and then to keep it that way. The panhandlers, transients, and unclean people that hang around the Safeway store are disrespecting both the manager, Brian Ridgely, and the building itself. The look on the faces of the people that come to Safeway to shop for their groceries and literally encounter these people that hang around in front of and around Safeway are all too often looks of disgust and revulsion. Question: does the Safeway / Albertsons corporate even know the situation regarding all these problems? They need to. Redding, California has 2 Safeway stores, and the Safeway store on East Cypress Avenue is a great and clean store. The other downtown Redding Safeway store, although in an area of transients, panhandlers, etc., the manager of that Safeway store sees to it that those who loiter are ushered away in a tactful but sure way, and because the management of that Safeway store stays on top of the problems, you don't see the same people time after time continuing their quote-unquote residency there. Both these Redding Safeway stores are very clean, and both inside and outside. So you tell me, what is wrong with the Crescent City Safeway store? With this being said, wouldn't it be a more positive approach for Brian Ridgely and Supervisor Gitlin to work together to get the Safeway situation cleaned up once and for all? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Jesse Salisbury, Crescent City. I don't think that it's really up to Safeway to try to clear like a half a mile worth of homeless area behind there. I mean, there's a lot of people back there, and it's not Safeway's fault. I do believe that I believe the owner, the major owner of that shopping center is Kevin Berger, and maybe he could do something about that. I do think that he's been trying. There's a lot of that parking lot that has nothing to do with him. If you look at that whole area, there's no place anywhere to go to the bathroom, and people use McDonald's for the local restroom area there. And you know, I don't hear anybody griping about McDonald's. On that, that's one issue. Personally, I've seen Mr. Gitlin browbeat a worker at the canned food or the grocery outlet and the Dollar Tree. And he goes there and he browbeats him with his little iPod, pointing out these, you know, I seen here's a picture of a shopping cart somewhere, and he goes there saying, "I'm Supervisor Gitlin." Now, he shouldn't be doing that. I mean, if he's going to go there and say, "Hi, I'm Roger Gitlin, I got a problem, I'm doing this fight for blight thing," that's one thing. But you don't go there and say, "I'm a supervisor." I mean, you're a board. You should be acting as a board. You shouldn't have one of your people acting alone, correct? A problem that we're having here locally with this homeless and the crime is the AB 109 and the Prop 47. We've tied the hands of our police, and you know, they're not able to house any more people. I mean, you know, now we have this like unfunded mandate where we're forced to hold these people that really should be going to prison in our own jail, and now we have no place to put the people that we could be putting in there to get them off of the street. So the cops are forced to just slap them on the hand, or, you know, book and release, if that. I think that we should really look into doing something about Prop 47 and AB 109, because they are just tearing this community apart with the crime. And my last gripe is your parking lot over on 5th, I believe it's 5th and J, used to be the old berry patch. Crescent City has an ordinance that, you know, for every, I believe it's 3 parking spaces, you put up a tree, and you guys have probably got 35 parking spaces over there, and your weeds are getting pretty tall, but they don't count as a tree yet. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Chris Cerlini, and I live on the corner of Hoover and Harold. I live in Rogers District. I just wanted to say, when we point out the people that are at Safeway, we all know we see those same people over and over and over. It's not transients from somewhere else. And we can't single these people out as someone else. We can't. They're our community. We need to care for our community. We need to not point fingers like Roger's doing, and then he wants a gold medal to put on his chest to say that he did that. When we all know what that does. Conflict resolution is thrown out the door at the point you start pointing fingers. How about working together? As a community, caring for the people that are around us, caring for our wages of people in all the unions. The city doesn't need to live like that. I've done it myself. We need to care about these people. We need to provide some answers, and we need to stop the finger pointing. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Susan Tejan. I'm relatively new to the community, but I say that tongue-in-cheek because my parents retired here 33 years ago, and I'm hoping I'm going to give a little different aspect of what those who outside your community think about this community. The first minute I laid my eyes on those beautiful redwood trees and then saw the ocean right next to it, I fell in love with it, and I have worked hard to reach the point where I could retire and come and live here. My mother did pass away last Christmas, but my father is still here, and he's 89 years old. My understanding, this community is very much dependent on tourism. And if not, then I'm surprised, because it seems like every one of the businesses I've been in that talk about how much more they open up and how much more business they do, it does seem like it's very important. So I'm going to give you my viewpoint from the idea of somebody who came here as basically a tourist for the last 32 years. And I've watched the situation with the transients that are outside Safeway get worse and worse and worse. I do not feel comfortable going in there. I do avoid going there. I have been there when there have been 2 or 3 of those individuals who have been going through the trash cans like crazy, throwing everything at my feet. I've had times, like back in April, when I was leaving Safeway, and there were 10 of them clustered together on that side that's over towards where the nail shop and the pizza place are, with their 2 pit bulls, and they were camped out, and they were not excited about having to move so that I could use the sidewalk to get to my car. That meant I had to walk in the rain to go where I felt I was safe. I have been approached with those who have wanted food or money. So if some of you have had different experiences with that, then maybe I just was the unlucky one who had that happen. But my husband has had it happen to him too. That area, because it is right here in town where there are services, and because there is an area where they can go to behind the store where they can hang out, throw down a blanket, whatever it is they want to do, does apparently encourage those who are homeless to be there. And something does need to be done. Now, I come from Southern California. I've lived in 2 other states besides that, though. And I've lived in big city, small city, a little town, rural, whatever. I will tell you that in LA County, we had some areas that had stores, whether you talk about outdoor mall or shopping centers or whatever, and they had security that was hired by the management of the property, not places like Safeway. And I think it's a shame that we have to come and have a fight about whether Mr. Gitlin said something that you're all offended by. I don't know him, I don't know you. I'm here as a brand new resident of this area, and I'm uncomfortable. I'm feeling like you don't like each other. I feel like perhaps, since I heard some comment earlier about what somebody said who's kind of in accordance with what I have, and you're all laughing, that perhaps if you have a differing opinion, you're not going to be welcome here. My heart does go out to those who have difficult circumstances. We have been there. My husband and I have been on the verge of being homeless a couple of times because of unexpected job loss. But at the same time, there's a difference between that individuals who could get help, and I hope that you guys have something in place that will provide for those who have difficulty. If not, then shame on the area. If you do, that's where they should be. It is not incumbent on Safeway or anybody else or me to help provide them with food unless I choose to. That is a choice.
I could wrap it up, please.
Okay. Law enforcement should have their hands untied. We need to be able to take care of those that are not safe. And I've seen people having things stolen. I've been approached by people in stores that have told me, especially in Safeway, you just left your purse and walked away for a second. You're going to lose it. Put it away. And I think that that's an inappropriate thing for us to have.
You're out of time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is George Selman, and I've been listening to all this criticizing going on against Roger Gitlin. And it's just strange. This started over a month ago, this controversy or criticism program. And since then, if you look at Safeway here lately, it's pretty clean there, you know. And nobody's done anything, I guess, huh? Well, it's sure a lot better than it was 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. So everybody wants to criticize the wrong thing. They're not criticizing Roger or the owner of Safeway. They're criticizing the people that caused this, you know. And that's where the problem is. Is it because that Roger hasn't been a resident long enough, you know, to qualify for all this? You know, is that the problem? Is it why everybody's against Roger? I can't understand that, you know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jacob Chilcott, and I came here today to share a bit of my experience that I had with some aggressive people that I call street people. I don't know what their living situation is, but I think it illustrates the problem that's going on that we're referring to at Safeway, and in my opinion, we're scapegoating. talking about Safeway's responsibility. Well, it's a community responsibility. And I have a business at 1044 Highway 101 North. We have a lot of street traffic, people walking up and down the street. Some appear to be homeless. Vast majority cause us no problems. But in the 2 years I've been there, there have been a couple folks that have. And last week, we had to call law enforcement, or I'd say the week before, we had to call law enforcement twice. The second experience is the one that I want to share. This was a person that has caused all sorts of disturbances throughout the community. At the north end of town, I've witnessed it. So last week specifically, she was on the side of our building, pounding, yelling, obscenities. Staff witnessed her smoking drugs. It appeared to be methamphetamine. Law enforcement was called. They did not respond. Law enforcement was called a second time. They did not respond. One of my staff was outside and saw a CHP officer and flagged him down. The CHP officer called for backup, and 5 law enforcement officers were there within a minute. I received a call from my staff alerting me what's going on at our art studio, and so I was there in a couple of minutes. What I witnessed when I pulled up was law enforcement surrounding this person. I went inside to my building, I talked to the clients, the staff. I went outside, law enforcement was standing around talking to themselves, so I walked up to find out what happened, and I was told that they let her go. I asked why. The sergeant told me that, in his opinion, there had been no crime. I said, I insist on pressing charges. He said, in his judgment, there is nothing to press charges for. He reminded me he's been doing this since I've been in high school, which I know is true. He gave me a ticket when I was in high school. However, at the very least, this person was committing a disturbing the peace, violation of Penal Code 415. I had to argue with the veteran sergeant to go and take statements from the staff that witnessed this. An argument that took place over 5 minutes before he was willing to go and interview the victims of the crime. During which, when he did interview them, he persuaded them not to press charges, telling them that the district attorney would not prosecute this matter. When I was told that, I contacted the district attorney that afternoon, left a message. Within 20 minutes, he called me back. He was very angry that a law enforcement officer is telling people, citizens who are trying to press charges against some serious antisocial behavior, doing our duty, that he's trying to persuade them not to follow through with it. The following day, that woman was walking up and down the street. A business down the street reported she was throwing rocks at cars. Law enforcement on Highway 101. Law enforcement was called again. Again, let her go. I've called Sheriff Apperson to make a complaint about his sergeant. I've called 3 times and left messages with his secretary. I've not heard back from Sheriff Apperson.
If you could wrap it up.
Okay, this is the problem that we're experiencing in this community, is we are not following through with our civic duty. As citizens, we need to call and report these things. It's not all homeless people that are committing these crimes. There's an awful lot of people that live in homes that commit crimes in this community. We as citizens need to call. We need to expect law enforcement follows up, cites and arrests people, and we need to expect the district attorney prosecute it. That's the failure we're experiencing here in this community. That's where it's coming from, in my opinion.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name is Greg Duncan. This is regarding the tax exempt status, if it's appropriate to speak.
We're going to have that later on the agenda if you can stay, or if you don't have time, you can
I'd be happy
speak.
to stay, thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Henry and live in the county. I'm sorry to keep you on this issue. I appreciate your patience in listening to everyone so politely. But I just had to speak because people have talked about, well, why is Supervisor Gitlin the issue? He's made himself the issue. This problem came up 2 years ago, and then he talked about it in the same way. What has happened in between? At the end of his post on Facebook, what he says is, this is an election year. Come on, folks, we need to talk about this again. I think it's very plain because he used those very words. So I'm sorry, but he does manufacture crises. Issues that are not problems need to be, issues are not problems to be solved, but are vendettas in his eyes and need to be enforced. I've seen this happen on various committees, various boards, and a wonderful example is the Solid Waste Management Authority Board, which now is operating very well without all the problems that it used to have, because people are paying attention to the issues. Now he's asking not a government board or committee or attacking one, he's attacking a private individual and may cause him to lose his employment, and I just don't think that's right. He's shown again and again that he doesn't understand the role of a county supervisor. I think the rest of you do very much so. I know that because I served on a board for 8 years, and you have no authority as an individual supervisor. You're elected to be a member of a 5-member board, which operates by majority rule. Supervisor Gitlin asks if he's the judge, the jury, the code enforcement officer, the emperor of Delaware County. And I could say the emperor has no clothes, but instead I'll say he's shown little judgment and no grace in handling problems. And I think that he could have 2 years ago started working on this issue when he first brought it up. Instead, it's been allowed to simmer and nothing's happened, and now this may create a real problem for an individual in our community. I really appreciate efforts like Supervisor Finigan is working on, cooperating with others to solve the homeless problem, and I wish you luck with that. I think that's a really great effort, so thank you.
Thank you.
Very quickly, Catherine Murray, I'm a resident of the city. I agree with everyone who's made statements regarding supporting Safeway and the manager there. If you take into consideration Mr. Longsdale's recommendation, please consider the fact that Safeway is probably the largest private corporation that employs people here in our community. So I hope you take him up on his recommendations, because that could be jeopardized by the actions of the 1st District Supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period and we are going to move on. We've got some timed items. I'm going to move the update on the Smith River National Recreation Area up so Dave can get back to starting fires or preventing fires or putting out fires or something.
So Dave Palmer, District Ranger on the Smith River NRA. So I'd like to thank the board once again for the opportunity to come down here and report out. Always look forward to it, and it's always a pleasure. So we are winding down our summer season. At the end of the month, I will lose my seasonal rec staff, so they're in the process of shutting down a couple of our campgrounds, namely Patrick Creek and Grassy Flat. Panther Flat and North Fork will stay open year-round, and we will keep the Big Flat campground open at least until the end of the hunting season. So, a lot of good work happened in the campgrounds this year due to RAC funding, so we do thank the RAC for making that work possible. It's very much appreciated. We're heading into wet weather, or hopefully soon, which means our POC gates will be closed. Closures are dependent upon wet weather. We try to keep them open as long as possible due to hunting season. So we will be keeping an eye on the weather, and then once it starts to roll in, we will have to close them. A lot of good trail work this year. Clark Moore, his crews were able to get out there and clear a lot of our trails. This work was also made possible by RAC funding, so we are very appreciative of that. Appreciate Clark Moore and his enthusiasm for the trail systems on the Smith River NRA. His, great guy, and we do appreciate all of his hard work. Last weekend, the Smith River Alliance had their annual NRA cleanup. So they teamed up with the trash dogs, volunteers from HSU. Over 40 volunteers showed up, and in a couple hours, they were able to collect over 6,000 pounds of trash. So once again, thanks to Grant, Patty, all the volunteers for all their hard work. We do appreciate that too. Let's see. Fire season. So far, so good. The Gap Fire on the Klamath is probably the biggest one in the area right now. It's over 30,000 acres, I think. On the Smith River NRA, we've only had 2 small starts this year. Both were quickly contained. So we've been fortunate that we didn't have a repeat of last year, and hopefully with some weather coming in, we can close out the fire season. Travel management? We're so close. Right now, Carol and her staff are down there at the SO putting the final document together. Merv wants something by the end of the fiscal year, so that's the end of September, and we're going to be close. I mean, we're at the finish line, and a 10-year plus project. It would be nice to close the doors on that one.
Yes, it would.
Our D by D for Gordon. So it's a 70-acre small unit that, my understanding, the package is all ready to go out. I think it has to go out for a 30-day period, and then we'll take bids. I'm waiting for Jeff Jones to get back on annual leave to let me know if he actually got that out. But once again, yeah, that one is close, and it would be nice to get that out and see if we can get some bids and get work started on that. The Smith River NRA Collaborative is moving forward. A lot of good work going there, a lot of good people coming together with consensus. Right now we're looking for an area for a pilot project, proof of concept that we can show the RO in the Washington office that we can work together. So I have to thank Gerry and Grant once again for their leadership and willingness to take that on. They're keeping us moving, and look forward to good things coming out of that. I'm going to check my list. I think that's about it for this month. I will get on the schedule for next month and be back, and hopefully with some good news on travel management and the D by D.
That sounds good. Yeah, look forward. We got a little field trip planned here shortly.
Oh, yes.
The collaborative does. We're going to be looking at the pilot project, so that's all good. You're going for the Grizzly Adams look, are you? You're doing pretty well with it?
Yeah, the wife said I could grow a beard.
Right
so
on.
It's, so it's in the early stages. I'll trim it up later.
You're doing good with it.
Thank you.
All right, Dave, thank you so much. Always appreciate your comments and your letting us know what's going on in our forests. It's a great thing, so we appreciate it. Keep coming.
Yep, thank you.
Any public comment on this presentation or comments from board members? Dave, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. See you next month.
Okay. I'm also going to move up the presentation for that our county assessor is going to do regarding Sutter Coast Hospital property tax exemption. Jennifer?
All right. Good morning.
Morning.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Perry. I'm the Del Norte County Assessor. My attendance has been requested by the board in relation to the Sutter Coast Hospital exemption, and I'm not quite sure what everyone's expecting today, but I would like to emphasize that I'm here to speak on the topic of Sutter Coast Hospital from the point of the assessor, so where my jurisdiction lies. Many people may not be aware that there are multiple agencies that take part in the process of approving and administering portions of the exemption prior to local government taking action, but I will give an overview of the process and again be focusing on where my jurisdiction lies. Sutter Coast Hospital has been receiving a welfare exemption on their current location since 1991. Recently, I have received several concerned inquiries from members of the public regarding the validity of Sutter Coast Hospital's exemption status, including but not limited to the hospital's profits and use of the facility. As a newly elected official, I felt it was imperative to research the matter under my new administration in an effort to ensure the exemption is being properly administered. I take the concerns of the community seriously and feel it is my duty to offer assurance that property tax laws are being administered fairly and equally. So, through several inquiries to the State Board of Equalization, I was able to speak to a supervisor in the exemption section. I asked for confirmation on the process of approving and administering nonprofit status in general, as well as audit procedures for previously approved entities. I received a very informative response, which I'll share with you today. And I'll take the time to apologize right now for the several acronyms that I'm going to use, but there's a lot of the BOE and the OCC and the, all this kind of stuff, but it will be explained on what it is.
Just don't say Aleppo.
So, as stated by the California State Board of Equalization, which is known as the BOE, the welfare exemption is co-administered by the county assessor and the BOE. The BOE determines whether the organization itself is eligible for the exemption, while the county assessor determines whether the organization's specific property qualifies for the exemption based on the property's use. An organization seeking the welfare exemption would first file a claim form 277. This is the claim for an organizational clearance certificate for the welfare exemption. This is known as the OCC that is filed with the BOE. The BOE determines that the organization is qualified, and then the BOE will issue the qualifying organization, the OCC. Once an OCC is issued, the OCC remains valid until the BOE determines otherwise. An OCC does not require an annual filing in order to remain active. Once the organization receives an OCC from the BOE, the organization would then provide a copy of that OCC to the county assessor, along with Claim Form 267, which is the claim for welfare exemption first filing here at the local level. Claim Form 267 can be obtained from the county assessor. The county assessor would then determine whether the use of that property meets the qualifications for the welfare exemption. Once the county assessor determines that the organization the property qualifies for the exemption, then the organization must file an annual form locally every year thereafter. Section 254 of the Revenue and Taxation Code provides for the duties of the BOE in the administration of the welfare exemption. It provides that the BOE staff shall review each claim for an OCC for the welfare exemption to determine whether the organization meets the requirements of Section 214. Part of those requirements are that an organization must not be organized or operated for profit, and that no part of the net earnings of the organization ensures to the benefit of any private shareholder. The BOE makes these determinations through the OCC application process. Form 277 requires, among other things, that the claimant provide the following information: a copy of a tax-exempt status letter from either the IRS, evidencing exemption from federal income tax under Internal Revenue Code 501c3, or from the California Franchise Tax Board, evidencing exemption from state franchise or income tax. They also must supply certified copies of financial statements, balancing sheets, and operating statements for the calendar year or fiscal year immediately preceding the claim year and each subsequent year. The claimant must state whether the organization is organized or operated for profit. The claimant must state whether the organization's net earnings inure to the benefit of any private shareholder or individual. And they must list the top 5 positions with their salaries for an organization that has salaries of individuals in excess of $1,500 weekly or $78,000 annually. In addition to the claim form, the BOE verifies that an organization is a qualifying nonprofit by reviewing the organization's formative documents, tax-exempt status letters, and information from the California Secretary of State. The BOE also checks to see if an organization's tax-exempt status has been suspended or revoked by the Secretary of State, Franchise Tax Board, or IRS, and will not issue an OCC to an organization that has a current suspended or revoked status. The BOE does not grant an OCC to an organization without the claimant providing all requested information, including the proper financial statements. The information obtained from financial statements plays a critical role in the overall decision-making process. Revenue and Taxation Code Section 254 provides for the duties of the assessor in administering the welfare exemption. This section provides that the assessor must review all claims for the welfare exemption to determine whether the property on which the exemption is claimed meets the requirements of Section 214. The assessor may not grant the welfare exemption on a property until the claimant has been issued an OCC from the BOE. As stated previously, once an organization has been issued an OCC, it remains valid until the BOE determines that an organization is no longer eligible. Therefore, as part of the BOE's effort to ensure continued eligibility by an organization holding a valid OCC, the BOE performs verification reviews periodically. Currently, there is nothing in statute requiring the BOE to perform these reviews within a certain time period. However, the BOE makes every effort to maintain the integrity of the exemptions program by performing verification reviews on a continual basis. This was in response to my request. They said, "You made an inquiry as to Sutter Coast Hospital's eligibility and whether or not a verification review had been performed recently to determine continued eligibility. Sutter Coast Hospital currently holds a valid OCC. We performed a verification review for Sutter Coast Hospital on June 5th, 2006, and again on September 23rd, 2010. In both instances, we found that this organization continued to meet the requirements of Section 214 for purposes of the welfare exemption and remained eligible for its OCC. Based on our findings from these two verification reviews, we have no plans to perform another verification review at this time." As for your inquiry regarding whether financial statements are open to public inspection, all documents we receive from a claimant are open to public inspection and can be requested through a Public Records Act request within the BOE's disclosure office. I do have a phone number for that as well. I would like to also share an excerpt from a BOE letter dated March 25th of 1999, where the State Board of Equalization's Tax Council issued an opinion letter in response to an inquiry regarding confidentiality of welfare exemption claims. The opinion letter was written in response to an inquiry made regarding Sutter's records at the time. It reads in part, "The board, as a co-administrator of the welfare exemption, is responsible for verifying that this exemption is granted only to qualified nonprofit organizations using their properties for qualifying purposes and activities. As such, the board is accountable to the public for its decisions to exempt properties owned and operated by nonprofit organizations. Members of the public who have concerns about the qualification for exemption of the property of a particular nonprofit organization could inquire as to the basis for the board's decision. Should the board have to justify its decision to a third party, it would be necessary to provide disclosure of the claimant's affidavit, relevant documents, and correspondence. Disclosure of information relevant to the board's finding that a claimant's property qualifies for exemption under Revenue and Taxation Code clearly serves the public interest. While non-disclosure would serve Sutter Health's interest in keeping its financial information confidential, there does not appear to be a public interest in non-disclosure that clearly outweighs the public interest in disclosure." So as you can tell, there are several parts to this process, much of which is not under my actual jurisdiction. The Internal Revenue Service or Franchise Tax Board must first issue tax-exempt status to the organization after the organization meets their list of qualifications. Then the organization must meet a list of qualifications from the California State Board of Equalization, including but not limited to financials. At the very end of this process is the application to the local assessor, where my jurisdiction lies primarily in qualifying the use of the actual property. I check to see that the property is owned and operated by the organization for exempt purposes. Basically, the hospital is a hospital. It's not just an empty building that they're trying not to pay taxes on. Additionally, part of the use requirements for hospitals is that they do not generate any unrelated business taxable income, as defined in IRS Code Section 512. What this means is that essentially Sutter should only be making profits off of their own services. No reference facilities or space leased to other entities within the hospital can qualify for the exemption. Though private doctors in our community can and have referred patients to Sutter Coast for services, if a patient elects to visit Sutter Coast, they do become patients of the hospital and establish a patient profile through admissions prior to receiving services. All components of the main hospital site are owned and operated by Sutter Coast, including the gift shop. The annual welfare exemption from the Sutter Coast Hospital has been submitted to the assessor's office and signed under penalty of perjury, and checked the answer to this question as no, they are not generating any taxable business income. The rear facility, however, is not fully exempt due to matters regarding the use of the facility. There's leased space back there to those non-affiliated with Sutter Coast Hospital that cause that portion of the property to remain taxable. In light of the concerns that were brought to my attention, and in an effort to research matters originating well before my administration, I requested that Sutter Coast Hospital's organization clearance certificate be reviewed by the State Board of Equalization. And as indicated in the response from the BOA, they have stated that they will not be doing an audit at this time. While my request for the review of Sutter's OCC was denied, I have become aware that the concerns surrounding the hospital's nonprofit status have been reported to and are under review by the Office of the California Attorney General and other federally elected officials. Until additional information is provided to me, and as the assessor receiving notification of approved and qualified nonprofit status from my authoritative agency, the California State Board of Equalization, Sutter Coast Hospital has been granted the welfare exemption this year. All of the information mentioned throughout this report is available from the State Board of Equalization's website and partly within our office. The claim for welfare exemption annual filings are public record and can be reviewed in our office if anyone is interested in reviewing them fully. You can also view a listing of active and qualified organizations receiving the OCC on the BOE's website, which have indicated Sutter's nonprofit approved status annually. Additionally, the BOE website contains access to both the 2006 and 2010 hospital review reports from their last audits. The purpose of my presentation today was to educate the Board of Supervisors and members of the public on the process of administering the welfare exemption and where my jurisdiction lies as the assessor in relation to the other agencies involved. I hope the information I have provided was useful and informative, and I recommend that if, after my report and considering any concerns from members of the community that might come forward, if the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors is concerned with the validity of Sutter Coast Hospital's nonprofit status as determined by the state, that you make a Public Records Act request to the board to review the documentation as suggested by the BOE Exemptions Department. Anyone can make this request to review the documentation, so members of the public that are interested in reviewing the documents can access the information through the state board as well. And while you can't appeal an OCC granted by the BOE, the Board of Equalization has stated that you can inquire about a particular claimant and whether they were correctly granted the OCC nonprofit status. The BOE would determine whether or not a verification review is necessary or appropriate based on the information they have in their records and any information provided to them by the requester. If so, they may have the claimant file a Form 278 OCC, which is a verification for continued eligibility of organizational clearance certificate. So that pretty much concludes what I have for you today. That's my role and my point of view and what's kind of going on with this situation.
That's it.
It's like I said, I think it's misunderstood that I have as much authority over the nonprofit status as I do. I really just look at the use of the facility, that they're not, that if they have anybody in there that is not part of Sutter Coast, that part's not exempt. Everything that goes along with qualifying for a welfare exemption is done at the federal or state level before it gets to me. So a lot of questions about what's being thrown around are things that actually should be directed to the state, which I have inquired about and I have been denied.
Okay. Okay, well, we're going to take about 3 minutes, 4 minutes for a little break. Jennifer, if you can hang around, I'm sure we're going to have some public comment, and there may be some questions later on that we may want you to answer, so if you could, we'd appreciate it. We're going to take about 3 minutes. If you could come back a little before noon, we would appreciate it, and we'll take public comment. Okay, I'm going to open this up to the board first for any questions of Jennifer. Anybody got any questions right now for
Well, one question, and it regards the public records request. So as part of the process, does it matter where it comes from? In other words, when Sutter Coast made a presentation 2 years ago here, and as board chair, we asked for open your books, open your meeting notes, that didn't constitute a public records request? Does it have to come from our attorney? Does it have to, you have to have standing? Can a public do it? How does that work?
Well, the Public Records Act request would be, you would be making a request to the Board of Equalization to review the documentation that the state has that Sutter had submitted in order to obtain their OCC for the nonprofit status. So you would be making the request to the state. And like I said, anybody can do that. Any member of the public, board, individual, you know, anybody has that right.
So we were asking the wrong people.
Yes, if you were asking Sutter, yeah, that would, the public records request would be to the state.
Did I mishear you then when you said you requested it?
I requested that the organizational clearance certificate be audited, just reviewed to, you know, with the information that I had obtained. Just, this goes back 25 years, and this is, I've only been here a year and a half as the assessor. So it's a lot to sift through, and me just to feel confident that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I made the request just so I could be sure on my own part, and that was denied because of the reports that they had done and the reviews from 2006 and 2010, which I haven't had a chance to read through those reviews yet, but it's basically the findings of their audits from the OCC review where they stood by their decision that Sutter remained a nonprofit entity.
And you don't have an option. You don't have an option to say, well, wait a minute, we're not going to let this happen.
If it's a violation because of the use of the facility, I have a right to deny the exemption based off of the use, but not necessarily because I just don't agree with something that the state's already decided, whether or not I agreed or disagreed with that. The state can kind of tell me what to do, but I can't tell them what to do, so they, right.
Thank you. Yeah, Roger.
First of all, thank you for the presentation, Jennifer. It was quite revealing. The question is Sutter Coast acting as a public charity? I think that's what I heard you say.
Right.
Yes, yes, in part it is. In part it is. What the problem is that we don't know the percentage of what part is a public charity because they don't disclose their records. They're closed books. And we don't know, and I think this board has asked twice for those records and has been denied or ignored. We don't have that information on what percentage of the hospital is not being utilized as a public charity. So the savings from the property tax, and I'd like everybody to know, here's what the numbers are. It's a $42 million assessment. $420,000 is the property tax assessment. 19 cents on the dollar will come back to the general fund, and that's $80,000. I see Ms. Williams here wondering how we're going to get raises here. Well, there's $80,000 that could be used for that purpose, and we don't have that. Instead, $10.8 million leaves our county for Sacramento, corporate Sutter Health, in 2014, another $3 million in 2015. For what? They're trebling their salaries. I think Pat Fry, the top executive at Sutter, tripled his salary from 2007 to 2012, where he was earning $2.3 million.
I think we're getting a little off this subject.
Well, I think the question asks is there justification to
but
question this?
We're only dealing with what the county's role is in this whole thing, and those questions, I think, need to be directed to the Board of Equalization, if I'm not correct.
Can it be done through the county?
We only do what they tell us to do, and with the exception of if they're not running a hospital like they say they're running a hospital. So I don't mean to cut you off or anything, but I think we need to keep the focus on what the county's role is in this whole thing, on what we can and what we cannot do. If there needs to be a suggestion that the county ask for those documents from the Board of Equalization, or find out if there's anything that we can do that they haven't already done. I mean, they must have some sort of review process that they have to meet. And I don't mean to cut you off, Roger, but I think we need to keep it on point on what Jennifer's, I mean, you can certainly talk to the public about what you think they should or shouldn't do, but I think if we're going to keep Jennifer here, we need to keep on point on what her role is.
Well, on that point, Mr. Chair, since you recognize me, I believe there is an abrogation of that process. This board has asked twice and has been refused twice that information.
We've been, not from the Board of Equalization, we've only been refused from Sutter Health. That's a whole different deal. If there's public records out there that have this information, anybody can request that information. Any member of the public, anybody can request it.
Including the Board of Supervisors.
Doesn't have to come from the Board of Supervisors. That can come from anyone. So now, if you've got something else that's along the lines.
No, I think we are people. We are the Board of Supervisors. We can ask that very question. And I think we should ask to the Board of Equalization these figures that we bring to your attention as members of the public. We are members of the public too. So I would think that that would be an option since there's so much at stake here. And this is a county which is challenged on money. And that's money that should go in our coffers. I'm of that opinion.
Supervisor Howard, you got any questions of Jennifer?
Not at this time.
Okay, thanks. Jennifer, thank you again. Appreciate it. Now I'm going to open this up for public comment. And I would hope that you'll be respectful of the time. I know that we went a little bit long on the first one, and it's kind of my fault, although when people get in the middle of things, it's kind of hard. So if you just be mindful of the time.
Understood. This will be less than 3 minutes guaranteed.
Thanks, Doctor.
So I'm Greg Duncan. I'm a local doctor, and I'd like to start by thanking Assessor Jennifer Perry for doing some research on this issue of Sutter Coast tax exemption. The question that I'd like to ask all of you is, does Sutter Coast Hospital deserve privileged treatment, special treatment, treatment better than all the other businesses that operate in our county? And I believe the answer is no. You have a detailed summary. I provided this to the clerk of the board. But briefly, Sutter Coast is a public benefit charity. They have a tax exemption. They don't pay the same property tax rates that all the other businesses pay. Now, in 2 minutes, I'm going to summarize 5 years. Sutter Health, without notifying our community, decided 5 years ago to transfer hospital ownership and governance out of the county. Thanks to you, thanks to our community, we stopped what they said couldn't be stopped. We're still locally owned, even though some Sutter executives still state otherwise. The second decision they made was the critical access decision. That would have increased Sutter's profits by $6 million a year, Sutter Health's profits, because all the profits are automatically transferred from Del Norte County to Sacramento through hospital bylaws. But critical access would have reduced our hospital beds, and it would have tripled our charges on our Medicare patients. So in other words, significant negative impact on our local Medicare population. Now, today, Sutter executives say they have no current plans to transfer ownership or for critical access, but they still haven't addressed some issues like their high charges for care, their outsourcing of local jobs, and their out-of-network emergency room doctors who are costing our residents every day thousands of dollars in extra out-of-pocket costs because they have an ER group that is an out-of-network ER group for local insurance plans. Now, I think this is the crux of it when we talk about sticking on point. Sutter Coast has refused official record requests, including from this board. So how do we verify their claims that they're in compliance with anything? Now, I was on the hospital board, so I have access to a lot of records that way, and I also have some records I obtained through an FOIA request, which I can certainly share with you, that'll document some of what I believe is misconduct. So I'm going to close with the original question. Does Sutter Coast Hospital deserve special privilege and special treatment in the county at the expense of $80,000 of money that would otherwise be in our county coffers, or not? And what I would ask the Board of Supervisors is just to keep this discussion going. Pass a resolution that supports further research on the issue so we can get eventually to those internal documents. I believe that a tax exemption and operating in secrecy are incompatible. And if anyone disagrees with that, I'd love to have that discussion. But I've felt the support from the Board of Supervisors, and it's appreciated. So that's what I'm asking for, a resolution supporting further research on the issue. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Duncan. Thanks for everything that you've done. I appreciate it. Jennifer, if you could come, I do have a question because there seems to be some difference between Sutter Coast Hospital and Sutter Health. So who gets the exemption? Is it Sutter Coast Hospital that has the exemption, or is it Sutter Health?
The properties that we have that are under exemption are owned by Sutter Coast Hospital.
Okay.
But Sutter Health, I believe, used to be California Health Network. They were an affiliate of Sutter Coast Hospital, and I believe now they're referred to as Sutter Health. I don't know if that's entirely true, but that's just what I have in the documentation
Okay.
from years past, in like 1997. They referred to themselves as CHS.
Okay.
Before Sutter Health.
That just continues to come up, but the difference between Sutter Health and Sutter Coast Hospital. And so I was just curious as who gets the exemption. So there are some big differences there, I think. Thank you.
Yes, we have it as Sutter Coast Hospital receiving the exemption.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment?
Thank you, Supervisors. I appreciate it. My name is Chuck Weller. I live in Brookings. I'm a retired middle school principal. I've been a patient advocate at Good Samaritan in Brookings for 5 years. So I am fairly familiar with Sutter Coast, and I am also presently on 3 nonprofit boards in Curry County, and have over my lifetime been on the boards of 50 or more nonprofits. I believe that if it's a nonprofit, it should look like a nonprofit. Nonprofits have open meetings, except for personnel and real estate things. They have open records available to the public. If a member of the board has a conflict of interest when a vote is taken, the member of the board must declare that conflict of interest. There have been 3 members of the board of directors of Sutter Coast Hospital who were employed directly or indirectly through Sutter Health, which is the parent organization, which takes the millions of dollars every year from Sutter Coast's profits. They have never, to my knowledge, declared a conflict of interest or been denied a vote or self-denied a vote on something which would benefit their parent organization and therefore their employer. At one point, the CEO fired or relieved the accountant for the hospital and appointed themselves the chief financial officer of the hospital, and that is totally against nonprofit rules, regulations. And nonprofit boards' bylaws are pretty boilerplate across the nation to maintain nonprofit status. Just doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't look like a nonprofit to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Okay, so there's more complication involved with what Jennifer had to say. I started looking up the community health needs assessment reports because that's part of the IRS requirement for them to become welfare exemption. And to my knowledge, and I don't know, this is just, they don't have open meetings, and so in order to have a community health assessment needs report, they have to have input from the community. It's my understanding that they hired a private organization to help them perform this CHNA. That's something else that needs to be looked at. I'm going to get the information over to Dr. Duncan and do, I mean, that's how they're able to meet the requirement for the IRS, OCC, and get their welfare exemption. So it's just something to think about. I'll get the information to Dr. Duncan and to the county assessor to see if there's another loophole that you can go through to find out why they're getting away with what they're getting away with. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hello, my name is Catherine Wiley, and I live in South Curry County. I am also the chair of a health advocacy group, South Curry Healthcare Alliance. Since we in South Curry, 97415, are the largest population in Curry County, as well as the majority of taxation in Curry County, we are between the rock and the hard place, if you will, of the Curry Health Network, which wanted to annex us, which was defeated by over 62% of South Curry, and the hard place of Sutter Coast Hospital. I think one of the things, and I'm also a retired medical professional, I think that one of the things that gets confusing can be confused on purpose, and that has to do with who owns Sutter Coast Hospital versus who runs it and who is taking all benefit from Sutter Coast Hospital. If Sutter Health does not own Sutter Coast Hospital, how then do they have the right to take millions of dollars in a federally designated, medically and provider underserved area, which is both Curry County and Del Norte County, and ship it to the Bay Area or the Sacramento area? Those monies should be remaining here. And while there are tax-exempt status for nonprofit organizations, hospital charitable organizations have additional compliance issues. And these issues need to be looked at very deeply. There's lots of documentation that's done. And the issue of secrecy and non-access appointing your own board, having confidentiality agreements signed by that board when in fact your charitable health care is declining because of the Affordable Care Act, as well as the Affordable Care Act requirements, including the community health needs assessment. When it is all done, in my word, I'll use the word incestuously, by people who you appoint, by people who you pay, by people who benefit from you, instead of the communities. So I am here to ask you to consider that line that you cut at our border, because most of us are dependent not only on your airport for commercial transportation, but for our health care needs, as well as the hospital that you oversee. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm here again. Chuck Blackburn, former supervisor for Del Norte County, and very active in working with our doctors and small group of people that are looking into the Sutter Health issue. And our doctors, like Greg Duncan, Kevin Caldwell, have put out money out of their pocket, time out of their lives to try to bring up the true facts. And I know this board has been very supportive in your efforts to look into what Sutter Health is pulling against this community, and it's atrocious. And we've got too many good people. Even this lady that came and just spoke now, we need those kind of comments from professionals that know the business. But I'm just hoping that we can get Jennifer, I don't know if you're still here, but thank you so much for a comprehensive report to this board. And I know that we're going to get a lot of support from you the best way that we can in a small community. Seems like we don't have very much power, but I know we have a little bit more than we think. So to all of you, thank you, and good luck in your quest to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay Chernak, just a quick question and comment. If I heard everything right, there's a lot of financial information out there that Sutter Health or Coast has that, as Mr. Finigan said, we've asked for it and they haven't provided it, but you've been asking it the wrong place. So I would ask that before this Board of Supervisor meeting comes to an end, you put together a motion and pass a resolution that you will discover what organizations you have to apply to get the information and then do it. So basically it.
Thank you.
Jesse Salisbury, Crescent City. Yeah, I support you guys. I know you guys have been fighting an uphill battle with these guys over here. I've asked for, I've put in freedom of information requests for these people and they won't give anything up. I'm wondering that since they are a nonprofit, don't they have to have open and agendized meetings? I would think that they would. Now that I know that I have to go to the Board of Equalization, and you do too, I hope that we all write some ugly letters and tell them that we didn't appreciate them telling us that that they didn't have to have open meetings and that they didn't have to give us any information, or just left us in the black thinking that or not giving us the information so that we could get all this information so we could do the right thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Okay, seeing no further public comment, does anybody else from the board have any additional things to comment or say? Roger?
Well, I'm kind of on board of agendizing this for the next meeting. That exact resolution to continue this discussion on Sutter Health and find out who we need to contact and have that agency make the necessary requests for information. So I'd like to put that on the upcoming September 27th agenda.
Okay. Anybody got anything else?
Well, I know that to take an action, it has to be agendized. I'm wondering, and that's fine, I think that's great. But I'm wondering, since we had, can we give staff direction to inquire with the Board of Equalization, since it's something that this board tried to do before, only we asked the wrong people? Or does that have to be agendized as well? Do we have to wait 2 weeks?
As far as giving staff direction, the board can do it as consensus. They can
So
give
if there
give
is
direction
consensus,
or make a request in the
Sure.
case of the assessor because she's elected. You make the request to her or you direct us.
Well, would it be the request of the Board of Equalization? Would it be best suited coming from you as the elected assessor or from the Board of Supervisors as an interested third party?
I would be fine making the request myself as the assessor, and then I can pass on that information to you because it is public information. Like I said, I requested the review of the OCC already, which was denied, but it doesn't mean that they can't still provide me with the documentation, which I can give to you for your review. So I would be happy to put in that request.
When they do a review, do they go through a checklist? Do you know what they do? Is there a report card that comes out from that says if they were deficient in anything, or if they weren't, or how they go about doing that? Do we have that information?
The form is available online that has, it's a couple pages long, that has quite a checklist of things they have to provide when they do apply for that. I don't know what kind of internal documents they use for the verification check, but the form is anybody can view it and you can see the types of things that they were asked and had to fill out. And again, a copy of what they've provided for their exemption is available even in our office that we have on file, and that is public record.
Yeah, because it's one thing to get the information that you request, it's another thing to be able to cipher it out and know whether what you're reading is
what you're looking
is meeting their what they're supposed to be doing.
Chairman, I would suggest that the assessor work with county council in regards to the wording on the public records request. So Jennifer has all the information, and county council will have the correct wording on the request.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
That'll all be good. Anything else from board members? Yeah, Chris?
I'd just like to say that I know this board has appealed many times for the information and really asked Sutter to kind of step up to the plate over the past several years and become more transparent. And I know the communication from Sutter to the board has improved a great deal over this period of time. As brought up today by several members here in the audience, I believe one of the things that we hopefully will see soon is this community needs assessment. And I know because of their nonprofit status under the Affordable Care Act, that document will likely come to us after approval by their board, hopefully in December or January. But I do know because of that nonprofit status that there is a higher standard that Sutter is held to, and specifically Sutter Health. So my hope is that as we try to get over this hurdle and this divide that's been created here in our community over the last several years, we still need a hospital here. And I know our healthcare district is really looking to provide service, some of the services that are currently lacking at the hospital, so we don't have to continue sending our members out of the community. And I know as issues that have been brought forward by Dr. Duncan, specifically to the out-of-network ER groups, that is a true cost that even myself personally felt a year ago. And it's a cost, even though I do have a great salary, having a $5,000 cost for a 20-minute ER visit is unacceptable. And so what I'd like to see us come to is some kind of resolution, and I know Sutter executives are probably working on these resolutions, but we need to come to it through resolution with this community, both with the healthcare district, Sutter, and this board. So I'm hoping that that message can be brought back to Sutter executives some point soon so this transparency can get onward. Thank you.
Anybody got anything else, David?
Well, something that you're not going to, maybe it can open the door in your special records requests and when you're working on this, is while you're going to get the financials and you're going to get the minutes, if it shows that they're violating the open meeting laws, if there's not posted agendas or the opportunity to have an open meeting, then bring that back to this board if we can file that complaint or something. I mean,
I don't think it's required.
and when if it's not required, then let us know that too, I guess. Yeah, they're supposed to be open, I think.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move on. I'm going to take up the consent agenda quickly.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent
Second.
agenda.
I have a motion and a second. Any public comment on consent agenda items only?
Chair, can I get a clarification on the motion in the second? I didn't hear it.
I made the motion.
I second.
And Roger seconded. Seeing no public comment on the consent agenda, Kylie, would you, if there's any discussion on the consent agenda? Kylie, would you pull a vote, please?
Supervisor Finigan?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Chair Hemmingsen?
Yes.
Supervisor, Chair Hemmingsen should have commented on it earlier. What I wanted to point out that there was part of what we just voted on was about an approximate $344,000 contract award for Parkway Drive. So those constituents that might be watching this starting the beginning of September and finishing no longer than 15 days after that, that road will be fully striped with all the safety signage and the rumble strips, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So look forward to that. Big project.
Okay, and within that consent agenda, there was a proclamation. Supervisor Finigan.
This may take as long as some of the public comment. My age is showing because of the size of the font here, but it's a proclamation honoring Binational Health Week. And this measure would call on all the people of Delaware County to join the people of Latino origin in observing and participating in the 16th Annual Binational Health Week to take place October 1st through October 16th, 2016. And whereas the Secretariats of Health and of Foreign Affairs of Mexico and the Ministries of Foreign Affairs of Guatemala, Honduras, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, the Institute for Mexicans Abroad, and the Mexican Society Social Institute, the United States-Mexico Border Health Commission, the Health Initiative of the Americas, a program of the University of California, Berkeley, School of Public Health, have recognized the necessity of improving access to health services for the underserved Latino population in the United States of America. And whereas, according to the 2006 United States Census, this country is home to more than 4.5 million people of Latino origin. And whereas improving the health of mobile populations requires multiple approaches in service design, delivery, funding priorities, and most fundamentally, requires strong binational commitment, and whereas in October 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 2015, the Health Initiative of the Americas and partnering organizations convened the first 9 binational health weeks, an unprecedented effort overseen by multiple agency task force, which conducted health promotion and educational activities for the underserved Latino population in the United States. And over 1 million people benefit from the health care activities. And whereas Binational Health Week reflects coordinated efforts between the United States, Mexico, Canada, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru to improve the quality of life of the underserved populations by expanding their access to health care, increasing their health coverage, their health insurance coverage, and reducing their unmet health needs. And whereas the Health Initiative of the Americas and the Consular Network in the United States of Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru are coordinating the 9th Annual Binational Health Week, and activities throughout the country will be centered in the regions with a high level of community health needs. And whereas the Del Norte County acknowledges the many organizations and volunteers collaborating in the organization of health fairs and educational health workshops, and whereas Binational Health Week provides an opportunity to highlight critical health issues in Del Norte County and throughout the United States, and will serve as the basis for future bilateral efforts. And whereas the Del Norte County is committed to recognizing and honoring those observances that are dedicated to the best ideals of public service, and Binational Health Week is one of those worthy observances. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors that in honor of those efforts to improve public health, October 1st through 16th, 2016, be it declared that the 16th Annual Binational Health Week throughout Del Norte County on the 13th day of September 2016. Passed unanimously by the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Is somebody here to receive this?
Just wanted to say real quick, I'm Patricia Black. I work at the Del Norte Community Health Center. We had many other people here, but they all had to leave. So thank you for doing this again, and we'd like to invite everyone on October 9th to come to the Binational Fair, which is a great service to the community and lots of fun, lots of good food. So please come.
Thank you. Okay, so we are now going, we're only 2 hours late, but we are going to open the public hearing to consider the recommended budget and all special district budgets for 2016-17. Mr.
That's
Sarina.
step one in the recommendation before you today. The other one is to consider the annual children's budget as presented. Before the board today, and if you'd like me to read the entire 14 pages, I will.
Appreciate it if you didn't.
Thanks, I appreciate it too. We have been in the process of going through the annual budget, and as the board has been updated on virtually every meeting, by October 2nd of each year we have to have a balanced budget. We started with a recommended budget in June that was approximately $3.5 million in the negative, and about a $2 million carryover fund balance has assisted. There were other changes made during the last several months, and then with the closeout of the annual budget, lots of meetings with departments, looking at different revenue sources, some increases in revenue. There have been, I'll call them slight increases, but slight increases in yield tax, in TOT, in property tax and sales tax. Those are some of the primary resources that come forward for the board to deal with, primarily our general fund. Non-general fund departments go through allocations that come back to the state of California. The current general fund is at about $2.59 million, of which about 12 million of that is actually discretionary to the Board of Supervisors. As you know, most of the services that we provide are mandated, either through state law or through other legislative acts that have been undertaken by our state legislature saying you will provide these services. Some of those, they include revenue and some do not. It makes it very difficult when we have a non-funded mandated program. The overall budget right now for the county is at approximately $124.1 million. The majority of that obviously comes through Health and Human Services. Over the last 3 years, we've had an increase in expenses by about $2.51 million, and revenue is about $2.269 million. There have been some actions taken by the budget team with follow-up with recommendations to the board that have allowed us to balance the last few years. And again, this year, part of that is dealing with funds that are not necessarily related to property tax or sales tax, but pay for services in general fund departments. So we've been able to work with the departments and come up with those solutions. Also included in this is salary and benefit increase that was 18.64%, which covered PEPA requirements and a 5% employee COLA over the last 3-year agreement. And I bring that up because the overall percentage is something that was required by state law, and then the 5% was additionally approved by the Board of Supervisors. Those are costs that all counties are going to have to absorb. We had to absorb them also, and those are the realities. As we went through this process, we looked at the goals of the Board of Supervisors, the actions taken in previous budget years regarding our partners, who gets contributions, much like the Visitor Center, Chamber of Commerce, Klamath, both and Crescent City, Danaca. We have offsetting funds for 4-H. Those are those types of commitments that the board has made in the past. We have, as I mentioned, met with all of the departments in some form or fashion, either through email or directly, multiple times in order to look at their revenue projections, look back over the last 3 years, sometimes further, to determine what might be available in the upcoming year and do those projections. Some of the departments have been able to increase their projections, which has assisted us getting where we are today. Right now there's, if you recall, Attachment A, which is a position request form that usually comes before the board, is not attached at this point. Because of the balance of the budget and the lack of any additional revenue on the other side, only positions that are offset by revenue will be brought forward with the last and final iteration, which will come in 2 weeks. There will be a few positions recommended at that point. They may be non-general fund, or they may be general fund offset by revenue that's already available. So today what we're asking the board to do is open the public hearing and consider the recommended budget and all submitted special district budgets for the 2016-17 fiscal year, and continue the hearing for 14 days and consider the annual children's budget. There may be some changes between now and the final budget. I will get any additional numbers that come through the auditor controller. We hope that those are all positive. And with that, I would like to thank the departments that have come forward and worked with us on this. As I think the board understands, each department has a responsibility over their budget projections. They turn a requested in, it turns into the recommended, it turns into the recommended final. So there's been work done by the departments for quite a while. And I want to thank the auditor controller. He works directly with myself and the assistant CAO, who is my right-hand guy, who's really the, for my purposes, an invaluable resource when it comes to budgeting. So the work put in by Clint and Neil, I can't understate that. So at this point, those are the recommendations. I'd like to open the public hearing, and then we'll be back with the final in 2 weeks, unless the Board of Supervisors chooses to have any additional hearings between now and then.
Okay, the public hearing is open and will continue to be open for 14 days. And I would like to, I know that Clint and Neil and Jay and all the department heads and all the departments have put a lot of time into this just to get us to zero. And it's disappointing. The budget does not include some things that are priorities for this board. which is putting money away in the reserve and also funding a natural resource person that I know Supervisor Howard and I have spent an inordinate amount of time dealing with, and that could be done probably on a daily basis instead of a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So anyway, I'd like to thank everybody involved. I know it's been a long process, and
Chair, can I touch on those two in particular?
No. Yes, you can.
Those two were requests as of last year in regards to additional, the position itself is approximately $75,000 to $80,000 at the bottom line. The reserve was $100,000 last year. We do have $100,000 in our contingency, which we've had in place for many years. It pays for emergencies that come up during the year, and about 2 years ago we exceeded that. We had to pull from other budgets in order to deal with a couple of emergencies. Last year was better, but that contributed to our overall carryover fund balance. So, you know, it is disappointing that we are not able to fund those at this time, but it really does come down to resources. Do you have the revenue to do that? And if in fact that becomes something that is available in the future, we will certainly try to put that in any future budget or come back to the board with the solutions. But right now it's based on resources.
Understood. Any comments from board members?
No, I just want to reiterate what you said, Chairman Hemmingsen, about those two open areas. I appreciate the clarity for the public, Jay, on why we can't fund a resource specialist and why there is no room to add another $100,000 contingency bubble for emergencies, which would make it $200,000. So I appreciate the clarity for the public. Sometimes people don't see everything, so I appreciate the hard work you put into it. We're essentially at $0. We're right where the rubber meets the road. Is that correct on this budget?
We are just a couple thousand over at this point because of a change that was made between the writing of the report and now because of a number that was submitted to the auditor incorrectly, but essentially zero when you're talking you know, a $24 million general fund. As I said, if there's something that happens within the next couple of weeks, we will look at those priorities. We'll look at the other responsibilities that the board and the county has and try to address those too.
David, anything? Supervisor Howard?
I definitely appreciate the CAO's comments. It's, as a new board member, it is apparent that every year we have more and more demand for services that this county provides. And every year it appears that we're more and more faced with declining revenue sources. And it cannot keep up. It just cannot keep up with an increase in services. At some point, this board is going to be faced with some tough decisions. And I'll probably be here when that happens, which is unfortunate. And I know we as government could encourage solutions, but we're policymakers. And we have tough decisions to make. And I know it affects a lot of people's lives. But at the same time, I think as our staff has demonstrated, they've done everything they can to really try to meet everyone's needs and treat everyone fairly. But it's been a heck of a challenge. And having firsthand knowledge of it now, I do realize that unless this county figures out some way to increase its revenues, whether it's TOT, whether it's property tax, whether it's sales tax, whether it's just growth in business that help aids and brings people to this community, we're going to be faced with these growing concerns every year. And God forbid we have to make any decisions that remove some of those services that our community desperately needs.
Thank you.
Well, you know, what Supervisor Howard said, just highlight something that we've talked about, the proactive financial. We've talked about it at Tri-Agency. Other communities like Humboldt County, for example, passed a tax for safety that was to go to sheriff and fire. We've talked about TOT and investment in economic development, investment in tourism. And it's a hard conversation to have, but I think it's one that we better begin rather than find ourselves trying to dig out of a hole. So, because aside from investing there, we also have to It's been highlighted every board meeting, investing in our employees, so.
Public comment.
Norma Williams, Chapter President of the Del Norte County Employees Association, SEIU 10-1. Kind of already know what to expect me to say, so I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. What the CIO presented to you today is a concessionary budget that yet again is balanced on the back of its low-paid employees. It doesn't reflect current negotiations or the salary study, which shows that Del Norte falls below comparable counties by at least 20%. Take an office assistant position whose base minimum salary is $18.70 per month. When compared to the other counties in the study, that salary is below the labor market median minimum by 16%. Other examples of below market classifications in Del Norte are an account clerk, 9%, deputy district attorney, 11%, ag department inspector, roughly 26%, assessor, 15%, building inspector, 25%, correctional officer, 10%, custodian, 14%, eligibility worker, 14%, engineer technician, 10%, mental health clinician, 17%, road maintenance worker, 18%, social worker, 15%, systems support specialist, 10%, just to name a few. Perhaps what you should do is read through the study, classification by classification, and see where we are falling short and why we are finding it so hard to retain and recruit county employees. In June, I told you that your greatest asset is your county workers, that we are the ones you should invest in. Though dismissed as rhetoric by the head of your county team, we demonstrated through testimonials how your employees are struggling paycheck to paycheck. The results of the salary study alone shows that despite the 2013 COLA, Del Norte still offers below market wages and is less competitive than its comparable and neighboring counties. We ask that you instruct your team to review the budget again, bargain in good faith with county workers, and find a solution to the low wages employees are struggling under. Otherwise, how long will workers have to wait before this is addressed? 1 year? 2? 5? How less competitive will we be then? How much more will we fall behind? Do you really want to be the county who offers starting wages below that of McDonald's? No more concessions. Raise all boats. Fair wages now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Bill Lonsdale again, and I'm still here. I'm going to say something that may seem like belaboring the obvious, but it's something that I think from time to time needs to be said to those of you on both sides of this issue who wrestle with coming up with the fairest solution. It's been my observation that in government budgets, there's a trade-off that has to be made between holding together the sinews, the muscle of the government operation, and satisfying the wants and needs of noisy constituencies that may not have a direct role in the way that government works, but have things that they want. And as elected officials, you're caught in the middle. I've been pleased to see that from what I can detect of what's gone on, is that your subcommittee that's working on the budget and the board as a whole seems to be giving philosophic priority to holding together those sinews, and those are the people. And Ms. Williams made a very cogent case for that, and you're faced with the trade-offs. Some of these nice to have things like people like me want for public transit and stuff like that, those are nice to have when it compares to who operates the government day to day. The people who operate the government day to day deserve, and I believe get, your priority, and that's the way it should be. And you don't very often get anybody up here thanking you for doing that. So I'd like to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, we're going to continue this public hearing for 14 days, and we'll be back to discuss it more. We're going to move on to item number 20, I believe. I got my stuff squared away. Yeah. Item number 20, which is to approve, authorize, submit, and file the county response to the 2014-15 final grand jury report as requested by our CAO.
So the Board of Supervisors received the grand jury report in the end of June. And I apologize it's taken this long to get the response back to you, but before you today is the draft response based on discussions with the departments in regards to a couple of the issues. And also, to reiterate, the Board of Supervisors addresses staffing issues and budgetary issues. They don't address every issue unless they are specifically requested by one of the requests in the grand jury report. As we went through this, I looked at the different findings, reviewed those with County Council, and addressed those to the greater extent possible. Many of the findings and many of the recommendations were very subjective. I found that a lot of them were not necessarily based in fact, and as such, it was difficult to write up a response to every one of those and deal with those. But I did meet with the Health and Human Services Assistant Director at the time and Director and went over some of their programs and issues. The way that the board is requested to respond is reflected in the responses. It's a bit negative. So if you have a recommendation that you partially agree with, you actually have to say, we partially disagree with it. That's the format that's required. So I went through each of the findings that were applicable to the board's response and the responses, and I provided this draft. One of the issues that continues to raise itself deals with dispatch at the sheriff's office, and the sheriff will have a separate response as well as the one written up in the draft before you. Also, the issue with barracks at Bar O. And a lot of the financial responses are based on the knowledge that we have of the funding sources and how you fund those. Bar O is not a general fund expense, and as such, the board does not allocate money directly to that department. However, that budget has been struggling, and dedicating money beyond the actual programs has been very difficult, but the barracks have passed Title 15 inspections every year. Would it be nice to do those? It's reflected in here. Yes, it would be. We agree in that case. But is it practical to do it from a financial standpoint? It isn't at this point. And we'll be having additional meetings with the committee that addresses specifically Bar O in the near future, dealing with some of their financial issues and how we can make recommendations to the board from there. So before you is that draft, and if there are any specific changes that you would like me to make to bring back, I certainly will accept those and go from there, but that would be from the consensus of the board.
I do have a question in response to recommendation 4 in the paragraph, and font is relatively small, but
the typo?
Well, I don't know that it's a typo. I think it's just incomplete. It just says county contributions to employee retirement currently stands at %.
Yes, I will replace that with the correct percentage.
And do we know what that percentage is?
Clint, do you have that one off the top of your head?
So what are we responding?
Well, this would be miscellaneous.
So miscellaneous is, I want to say, 16.883%.
So 16%, okay.
That's the employer contribution.
All right. Okay, it just has question marks in there, and I'm assuming there's a number supposed to be in there.
There's a couple of different rates depending on
Right.
safety and PEPRA and classic and non-safety, so.
Okay, that was the only thing that I noticed in there that, otherwise I think the responses were good. Appreciate your work on that. Is there any public comment on these responses to the grand jury report? Can I get a motion?
Make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve and authorize, authorize, submit, and file a county response to the 2014-15 final grand jury report. Any more comments from board members? Kylie, would you poll the vote, please?
Supervisor Gitlin?
Yes.
Supervisor Finigan?
Yes.
Supervisor Howard?
Yes.
Chair Hemmingsen?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item number 21, approve and authorize the chair to sign the attached letters in support of SB X11 and AB X126, known as the Beal-Fraser Transportation Package.
Yes.
Heidi.
Good afternoon. Two legislators, Senator Beal and Assemblymember Fraser, both have identical bills that are currently before the legislature through the extraordinary session that present a comprehensive transportation funding package. The bills involve increasing excise tax fees or excise taxes for fuels and also registration fees in order to raise approximately $4 to $4.5 billion annually that would be given to state and local governments in order to improve our local and state road infrastructure. Approximately $2.5 billion is estimated to filter down to the local road system. According to an estimate from the California League of Cities, just over $2 million annually would go to county roads in order to maintain our existing road infrastructure. In April of last year, I came to the board seeking support generally to send to our state legislators regarding transportation funding issues, as this has come to be a dire situation statewide, which many of you are aware of. What you see before you today is probably one of the most strongest applications that we've seen, or bills that has come forward. We've been asked by our the representatives from CSAC and I believe the city from the California League of Cities to come to our boards and councils to get support for this. I know many cities and counties in the state have already done that. So I know it's certainly not a popular topic anytime where you're rate increasing fees or taxes, but the condition of our road system at this point really warrants it, and this is where we are. So I'm available if you have any questions.
Move to approve and authorize the chair to sign.
Yeah, can I get a second?
You do have a second.
I have a second. Any public comment? We'll bring it back to the board. I do have one suggestion. While I think Mark McGuire was probably a really good baseball player,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure that we should be
He's
carbon
the
copying.
You can see I'm not into sports. I'm sorry. I really messed that one up.
I think the carbon copy should go to Senator Mike McGuire.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll make that change.
Just as a note. Thank you.
Senator Beal has always been a champion of the transportation issues, and there's a flaw here, and the flaw is that not in so much in the registration or if there was a tire tax or something, but the flaw is in the gas tax. But that is also something that if the road usage charge comes in, it will actually take the place of the gas tax, is what the design is, which means everybody would pay their fair share. Whereas this increase in gas tax is not going to affect anybody that has a Tesla. It's going to affect people less that have a Prius, and most of the cars in Del Norte County, without trying to say everybody drives a clunker, we're going to be affected more. So we're working on it.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I did have one comment. I hope there's a long-term solution to this, and I know Supervisor Finigan has been working on that with CSAC specifically for the road usage charge. This does, in a way, also hurt business and transportation costs with the diesel excise tax increasing 30 cents. That just means the cost of goods and services here to our community are going to increase dramatically. I know these are tough decisions to make, but the state is facing an increasingly decreasing budget, and trying to find and fix those holes in our roads locally, we've got to find that balance. And I mean, I've got constituents calling me weekly and I know everybody else does up here, to have those pieces fixed. And I don't see another way to do it other than this temporary stopgap.
Yeah, Roger?
This bill passes, it puts a tremendous burden on Del Norte County and small counties like Del Norte. Adding 17 cents a gallon to your already high-priced gasoline will drive more people to Fred Meyer. Diesel taxes would increase 30 cents a gallon. Vehicle registration, add another $38 to that. And if you're going to dare to buy a new car and register it in Del Norte County, you're going to be faced with another $165 per vehicle annual tax. I think it's too hard a burden on Del Norte County, and I pulled the pie chart up of just how the monies are allocated. The transportation budget is just under $11 billion. That's 6.4%, down from 9% from 2015. So the argument is, well, let's increase that amount. Well, let's look at the other parts of the pie. K through 12 education, 30%. Community, state university, university budgets, state university and University of California budgets, and another 8.7%. That's 38.7% in education alone. Healthcare, 31%. Those two categories have dramatically increased since the 2015 budget. Law enforcement, just 7.8% of the state budget, down from 9% in 2015. Pensions remain at 11%. The remainder of the other categories is 12%. I can't support this. I think this is going to put a huge burden on Del Norte County. It's going to exacerbate already tough conditions. And I think we need to go back to the legislature and have them redo this and exclude some of these onerous charges for small counties like Del Norte.
Okay, anybody got anything else?
Working on it, Roger.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, passes. Okay, thanks, David. Okay, moving on to legislative and budget issues. Item number 22, consider miscellaneous legislative and budget matters pertinent to the County of Del Norte.
The current legislative session for California has ended, and we have been advocating or dealing with our lobbyists for quite some time on a number of the bills. It's difficult sometimes to get our word out there, but we do have an advocate that also advocates for a number of other counties without conflict. So that's been an advantage, and they've kept me in the loop constantly and trying to get our ledge platform before the individual legislators. I can tell you that Mike McGuire and Assemblyman Wood, to the greater extent, have been very receptive to what we have taken forward to them. So as we get through this election cycle, we will then see them kick up again, and probably another 3,000 bills for next year.
Cool. Okay, moving on to item number 23. Approve and authorize the chair to send a letter in support of SB 1300, raising Medi-Cal reimbursement to ambulance providers in the state without costing the state additional funds.
Move to approve.
I have a motion.
I have a second.
And a second. Public comment.
Chair, members of the board, I'm John Pritchett, General Manager of Del Norte Ambulance. What SB 1300 would do, and it's already cleared the Assembly and the State Senate, it's currently on Governor Brown's desk, would be to install a quality assurance fee on ambulance providers such as Del Norte Ambulance. That money would be collected per call. It would be sent to the state. The state would take an administrative fee. It would then be shipped off to the federal Medicaid program. At that point, under the rules, it would then come back to California basically threefold. And that would lead to higher reimbursement rates of Medi-Cal patients. As we've talked before, Medi-Cal pays roughly 25% of the actual cost for an ambulance company to run the call. We lose money every single time we do a Medi-Cal patient. And unlike private practice doctors or private clinics We don't get to pick and choose who our patients are. Whoever picks up the phone and calls 911, we're responding, and we're transporting and treating those patients to the best of our ability. What SB 1300 would do would be the very first increase in Medi-Cal rates since 1999. In fact, Medi-Cal rates have declined in that time, and everything else has went up.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Bring it back to the board. Comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
you bet. Okay, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you all for hanging in there.